Chapter 1199. How is it? Is it fun? Zhang Xiaohua smiled. It's fun, it's fun. Shui Tiantian said first. Seeing Shui Tiantian's happy expression, as if he had escaped from the sorrow of losing his father, Zhang Xiaohua was also happy and said, Do you still want to play? Shui Tiantian hesitated for a moment and said honestly, Disciple wants to, but there's still a long time, let's play slowly in the future. Don't get tired of playing, otherwise, there won't be any more fun in the future. Elder Yu pointed at the door and said, Sect Master Ren, the lake is behind us? Yes, Elder Yu, please. When everyone walked out of the palace, sure enough, there was a pool of clear water rippling with the wind and lush green trees. Although it was a plain scene, it had the aura of an immortal. What a good place to go, Mr. Lu praised. To be able to spend one's entire life here, it's not a waste of one's life. Xiaohua, this lake, how do we get there? Zhang Kai was very sensitive and noticed. Isn't that right, father? If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. This small boat requires the use of true qi, otherwise, it would require the use of oars. Wait a moment, I'll go out and find an ordinary boat and oars. Senior brother sect master, are the things in the main hall used for cultivation? Zhang Pinger asked again. You guys are really impatient. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the curious faces of her disciples and turned to Zhang Kai and said, Father, let's go back first. This immortal residence will be ours in the future, we have plenty of time to enjoy it. As she spoke, she waved her big sleeves, and the scene in front of everyone changed. They were actually at the shore of the lake again. Zhang Xiaohu praised, Xiaohua, you really have the cultivation of an immortal. Not at all, second brother, this is all because I used the immortal residence's spiritual steel and used the immortal residence's power. How can I have this kind of magical power? Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and said. Then she looked at the pond not far away and the pavilion beside the pond and said, The pavilions over there are all empty, everyone can choose one, there's no one living in them. Is there mine too? Zhang Xiaohu asked shamelessly. There is, but there is only one. Don't fight with my disciple for a place. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Chang'e and Qinshen had been shocked and curious all the time, so they didn't say anything. Hearing this, they blushed again. That's enough. Let father, mother, big brother, and big sister-in-law pick first, then your disciple. I'll pick last. Zhang Xiaohu curled his lips. Zhang Kai and Guosufei looked at the extraordinarily exquisite small building and said happily, This? Do we still need to choose? Which one? Is something we can't even dream of. After the elders had chosen at random, Nye Qinyu and the others found a small building that they liked. Of course, Ji Xiaohua and Shui Tiantian lived in the same building. Qiu Tong didn't have to choose and lived with O Yen. In the end, there were still a lot of small buildings left. Zhang Xiaohu didn't stand on ceremony and chose one for himself. Chang'e and Qinshen also chose one next to Zhang Xiao. Well, big brother, second brother, second brother, second brother, second brother, you put the things in the carriage with father and mother. I'll take the food and other things later. I'll take my disciples to the front. What about Byron? Lu Qian smiled. Of course he will go. He is the chief disciple of Beidou School. Zhang Xiaohua took Zhang Byron with a smile. Zhang Byron looked around with his eyes wide open, as if he was also very curious and liked it very much. Let's go. Zhang Xiaohua waved her big sleeve and they all disappeared. When they appeared again, they were in the main hall of the Lingxiao Palace. This place is... Although everyone had used the praying mat just now and had flown through the air, but even Nun Jingyi and Master Chang Xing were dazed by the scene. How could they control themselves? After a long while, O Yen heaved a sigh of relief and said in a low voice, Senior Martial Brothers sect leader. Are we in the sky? If he accidentally falls down, will he die? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Why don't you take a step forward and see? O Yen stood carefully on the white cloud and didn't dare to move. After hearing Zhang Xiaohua's words, she suppressed the violent beating of her heart and took a small step forward. Yen only felt that her body was floating, like a fallen leaf in the wind. She slid forward slightly and there were still faint white clouds under her feet. Yen had only taken one step, but Shui Tian had already run several steps ahead of her. Suddenly, everyone was overjoyed. They floated around the main hall, but, no matter how they floated, they couldn't cross the boundary of the red clouds. How about Byron? Zhang Xiaohua had an idea and put Zhang Byron in the air. Immediately, a white cloud formed under Byron's body. Zhang Xiaohua pointed to the throne in the center and smiled, "Go, Byron, go there." When Byron heard this, he staggered and slowly flew towards the center. Unfortunately, out of Zhang Xiaohua's expectations, when Zhang Byron reached the border of the red clouds, he was also blocked. Zhang Byron patted the invisible barrier in front of him and opened his small mouth, about to cry. "Ha, Byron, don't cry. Master will take you there." Zhang Xiaohua carried Zhang Byron and appeared on the central throne in a flash. Ha! Zhang Byron saw this and laughed loudly. He struggled out of Zhang Xiaohua's arms and slowly walked around the central throne, playing. Cough cough. Alright, disciples. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the 5 disciples in the main hall and coughed. "Yes, master." Ji Xiaohua and Shui Tian stopped and bowed to salute. "Yes, senior brother." Nie Qinyu, Zhang Pinger, and Yen also stopped and bowed. "Yes, yesterday, I announced the opening of Beidou School in front of everyone in the martial arts world. But you were all in Huanxi Mountain Villa, so you couldn't see yesterday's grand occasion. Now, my Beidou School, 6 disciples are gathered in this Lingxiao Palace. It was the biggest occasion since the opening of my Beidou School." "Master, there is still a junior brother? How old is he? When will he come?" Shui Tian asked. "That junior brother of yours is called Chu Jing. He's not much older than Bai Ren. He's also a dying child. He should be on his way now. Perhaps he'll arrive in 10 days or so. At that time, our Big Dipper sect will really be complete. Congratulations, senior brother. Congratulations, senior brother. Our Beidou School has finally opened in Yaoshan." Nie Qinyu and the other 2 junior sisters said in unison. "Yes, everything is difficult at the beginning. My Beidou School opened yesterday because we have a very high starting point. You are also standing at a higher place than others. However, these are all external factors. If you want to step on the path of immortality, you need to work hard and study hard to achieve great success. Yes, we will follow Master's instructions." Everyone bowed to salute. "Yes, there is no need to be so restrained." Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile, "Look at your senior brother, he is still playing at my feet." When Zhang Byron heard himself mentioned, he raised his head and tilted his head to the side with a smile. "Ha!" Everyone laughed. That day, when I called myself the Beidou School, it was just a casual remark. I didn't really want to open this school. However, since I got such an immortal opportunity and took the Yaoshan immortal abode, if I don't do something, I am afraid I will be punished by the heavens. Therefore, even though all of you have different aptitudes and different experiences, but I have accepted all of you as my disciples. As for me, I am also an unorthodox cultivator. Therefore, in the future, I will at most play a little role in guiding you. Everything will depend on yourselves." Then he pointed at Nie Qinyu and the others and said, "Although Nie Qinyu and Yen are both women and can't practice martial arts, their aptitudes are also different. Nie Qinyu's Carefree Heart Sutra has already made a little progress. If she meets the right conditions, she will be able to set foot on the path of immortality. Perhaps she will be good at formations. You are already old and haven't been able to practice the Heart Sutra. I don't know what your future is." Yen smiled and said, "To be able to live in this immortal abode and accompany my senior sisters and martial nephews is already the greatest fortune of my life. Whether I have any achievements in cultivation or not, I am happy." "Great kindness," Zhang Xiaohua clapped her hands and said, "If you always have this kind of attitude, I am afraid you can also achieve something." Then she pointed to Zhang Pinger and said, "Zhang Pinger, your martial arts are excellent. You can only walk the path of cultivation through martial arts. Although you have a starting point, your future achievements will be limited. Oh, this is just my guess. Everyone has different experiences. Didn't you see your second martial uncle? Although he also entered the path of cultivation through martial arts, I am afraid his future achievements will be higher than Abbess Jing Yi of the cult of fragrance. Hearing this, Zhang Ping'er was happy. She bowed and said, I was abandoned by the cult of fragrance. I am lucky to have a place to settle down. Fortunately, senior brother sect leader accepted me into the Beidou school and gave me such a bright future. How can I not work hard? Even if I don't have any great cultivation, I am deeply grateful. You don't have to be grateful. Everything has a cause and effect. Your achievements may not be bad. Then she looked at Zhang Byron under her feet and said with a smile, This boy. I won't say anything. Since he could swallow the life-guarding spiritual tablet of the Yaoshan immortal abode, his achievements will not be bad. It's just that he is still young. You just need to take care of him. Yes, senior brother sect leader. We understand. The three of them bowed and said, You, Xiaohua Ji, among the younger disciples, you are the one with the worst aptitude. Zhang Xiaohua pointed at Ji Xiaohua and said, Yes, I understand. I am already satisfied to be able to become your disciple and learn a few fist techniques. I have never thought about the immortal arts. Ji Xiaohua answered honestly. Heaven gave you some luck. You don't need to get up and come to my door. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile, If you don't have such a fate, how can you have karma with me? I have also benefited a lot from you. How can I not return it to you? Moreover, you have a simple personality. You have a good foundation for cultivation. Your achievements may not be bad in the future. Thank you, Master. Ji Xiaohua bowed and said, Well, Shui Tian, you are the one with the best aptitude among all the disciples. You have been practicing the Fist of the North Star since you were young. It can be said that you have an inseparable connection with my Beidou school when you entered the school. Although you used to be in the Misty School, but there is karma in the unseen world. Your fate will come in the end. Please cast a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a collection, a tip. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to cast a recommendation vote or monthly vote. Chapter 1200. Thank you for your guidance, Master. If you hadn't accepted me as your disciple, I'm afraid I would have been stranded in Jianghu. Shui Tian was also very serious and respectful at this time. Yes, although your starting point is very high, but there's also one thing that's not good. There's martial arts internal energy in your meridians, and your cultivation of the Big Dipper magical fist is also wrong. It's not easy to slowly correct it now, I know. I will use great perseverance to overcome these difficulties. If Master can destroy my martial arts cultivation, I'm willing to cultivate again. Shui Tian gritted his teeth and said, When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she couldn't help but be moved. She clapped her hands and said, You have such great perseverance, you can cultivate successfully. It's just that this method is not reliable. The martial arts meridians and the immortal meridians are the same. Even the Dantian has many cultivation methods that are the same. If I destroy your internal energy, won't you be unable to cultivate the immortal path? Shui Tiantian's face turned red. He lowered his head and said, I'm ignorant, but I'll listen to Master's instructions. It's fine. With such great perseverance, what can't you achieve in this world? My Beidou school's Worry-Free Heart Sutra cultivates the middle Dantian. It's different from the lower Dantian that you cultivate in martial arts. The two may not conflict. You can cultivate as much as you want. Shui Tiantian's face was filled with joy. He bowed and said, Thank you, Master. Senior brother sect leader, can I do the same? Zhang Ping'er asked impatiently. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. However, if you cultivate again from the beginning, it's not as convenient as cultivating through martial arts. Yes, I understand. Zhang Ping'er gritted her teeth and said, I'm willing to cultivate again. It's all up to you. I've also just started cultivating, so I don't know what's best. Zhang Xiaohua said, However, since you've all chosen, don't regret it. No one knows what the future will be like. As long as you put in the effort, you'll definitely reap the rewards. We understand. All the disciples bowed. In the end, Zhang Xiaohua looked at Little Black and Xiaohua, who were sitting obediently on Ji Xiaohua's shoulder and looking at everything in the hall curiously. They glanced at her from time to time and seemed to be a little reluctant and a little scared. She said, "These two little things? I learned from the incense cult. I don't even know their background. I only know that their mothers are called Yellow Wind and Black Lightning." Ah? When Zhang Pinger heard this, she covered her mouth in shock. These two vicious beasts were known to the disciples of the incense cult. The two of them can be Beidou School's guardian beasts. Zhang Xiaohua said. She was also talking to Little Black and Little Yellow in her mind. How could these two little things know? He looked at Zhang Xiaohua with a puzzled expression. Alright, actually, I got most of my cultivation from the Carefree Heart Sutra. This Carefree Heart Sutra is one of the cultivation methods you all can cultivate. As for the cultivation method jade slips in the White Pavilion's hall, as well as the immortal tools and other items, you all can cultivate them. Of course, didn't I just say that the cultivation methods in the White Pavilions are the most basic? With my cultivation, I can only break the restrictions in these pavilions and obtain these cultivation methods. If your cultivation in the Immortal Tao reaches a higher level in the future, you can break the restrictions in the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple pavilions. Then all of you can cultivate the higher level cultivation methods inside. Hee hee, think about it. I only have the cultivation method in the White Pavilion. If you all can successfully cultivate the cultivation method in the Purple Pavilion and reach the purple cloud in the center of the throne, then, in this world, who will be a match for you? Her words filled everyone's eyes with hope. They all clenched their fists and looked like they were going to work hard. Right, I forgot that the cultivation of the way of immortality relies on the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth. The Yuan Qi of heaven and earth in the immortal mansion is abundant. However, I need to make a spirit gathering array for you all to help your cultivation. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and patted her forehead. A spirit gathering array? What's that? Nie Qinyu asked curiously. All of you follow me. Zhang Xiaohua stood up and picked up Zhang Byron. With a flick of her sleeve, the scene in front of everyone changed again. Although they were still floating in the air, it was pitch black above them. There was almost no light. Don't worry, watch me, Zhang Xiaohua said. She put Zhang Byron down and took out the mansion-guarding spiritual steel. It emitted a hazy light, illuminating the surroundings. This was the place where the phoenix was suppressed in the immortal mansion. Zhang Xiaohua put away the 9 immortal treasures and the mansion-guarding spiritual steel. The wasteland formed by the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth was also destroyed. There was only some gradually increasing and chaotic Yuan Qi of heaven and earth left. After taking out the mansion-guarding spiritual steel, Zhang Xiaohua patted the belt around her waist. Countless 5-colored chalcedony flew out from the belt. Zhang Xiaohua closed her eyes and thought for a while. Then, she placed her left hand on the mansion-guarding spiritual steel. She formed another seal and hit the chalcedony one by one. As Zhang Xiaohua inserted the seals, the chalcedony gradually emitted a brilliant light. Go, after the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, Zhang Xiaohua pointed his finger, and all the blue water chalcedony flew into the air. They were like stars in the night sky, arranged in a mysterious pattern. Then, Zhang Xiaohua did the same thing. She sent the other 4 types of chalcedony into the air. But the more she sent, the longer it took. When the last green wood-type chalcedony was in the air, Zhang Xiaohua's face was already pale. Zhang Xiaohua took out a primordial stone and replenished the primordial energy in his meridians. Then, he conjured a spell and spat a mouthful of blood onto the mansion-guarding spiritual steel. The spiritual steel exploded with a bang, and a ray of rainbow light flew out and charged towards the 5-element spirit-gathering formation that was already set up in midair. Go! Just as the 7-colored light hit the formation, Zhang Xiaohua pointed her finger and shouted. The 7-colored light immediately exploded like brilliant fireworks, scattering on the 5-colored chalcedony of the 5 elements gathering formation. Hiss! A series of light sounds, as if a fuse had been ignited, the entire 5 elements gathering formation lit up. The chaotic yuan qi in the air was gradually attracted by the formation and projected towards it. Above Yao Mountain, the yuan qi of heaven and earth was also attracted by the immortal abode and guided into the formation. All right, it's done. Zhang Xiaohua sighed. Looking at the depleted yuan qi in her meridians, she couldn't help but smile bitterly. She relied on her late-stage qi refinement cultivation and the help of the mansion-guarding spiritual steel to barely complete the 5 elements gathering formation. The inheritance of a sect was really difficult. However, for the time being, Zhang Xiaohua's painstaking efforts were unknown. The 5 disciples looked at Zhang Xiaohua, not knowing what he was doing. When Zhang Xiaohua said it was done with a pale face, everyone was also at a loss. Looking at the chalcedony that was as bright as the stars, Nie Qinyu whispered, "Senior brother sect leader, are you creating stars?" Zhang Xiaohua almost fell down. Patting her forehead, she said, "This is the 5 elements gathering formation that I mentioned earlier. In the future, if you want to practice immortal arts, you can practice in this formation. It'll be twice the result with half the effort." "Is that so? Then, thank you, senior brother sect leader." Nie Qinyu looked at the people beside her and bowed. Forget it. When you know the importance of this formation in the future, it won't be too late to thank me." Zhang Xiaohua helplessly waved her hand. Zhang Byron was the one who knew what was good for him. While everyone was talking, he had already run into the 5 elements gathering formation and very comfortably lay down to sleep. "Little black, little yellow, you two go too." Zhang Xiaohua looked at the 2 little things standing on Ji Xiaohua's shoulder. They were still a little afraid of her and thought to herself. The 2 little things were stunned, then immediately became happy. They flew over and rolled around in the vitality to play. After a while, Zhang Xiaohua recovered her true qi. She waved her hand and said, "Let's go. I've set up a restriction here. In the future, I'll give you a jade talisman to pass through. When it's time to practice, just come here." As she spoke, she held Byron in her arms. The 2 little things were also afraid. They flew in front of Zhang Xiaohua, but they didn't dare to fly on Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder anymore. Zhang Xiaohua didn't understand why they had such a change. However, they still called her father and mother in their hearts. It was just that they were a little timid. As for Zhang Xiaohua, she didn't know how to ask and could only leave it at that. Returning to the side of the pond, the fine and soft things in the carriage had already been packed. Only the heavy things were waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to start. Zhang Xiaohua didn't delay. She hurried the carriage to the place that Guosufei had already chosen and unloaded them one by one. The small building in the immortal mansion didn't have a stove. Guosufei and Lu Qian walked around for a long time but still couldn't find it. In the end, they could only ask Zhang Xiaohua if she could build one herself. Zhang Xiaohua naturally didn't have any objections. However, she couldn't use the mansion-guarding spiritual steel to create one out of thin air. She could only rely on Zhang Kai and Zhang Xiaolong to build it up bit by bit. Then, Zhang Kai pulled Zhang Xiaohua to the side and whispered, "Xiaohua, here, can we open up the wasteland for farming?" Zhang Xiaohua stared blankly and laughed. "What's the matter? Father, why did you suddenly think of opening up the wasteland for farming?" "Hehe, Father has been farming all my life. I'm not used to being idle all of a sudden. Previously, when we lived in the Huanxi Manor, we only ate and drank. We wandered around leisurely and didn't do any farm work at all. I'm really not used to it. Moreover, I've already looked at the back of the building just now. It's all extremely fertile land. If we plant crops, we'll definitely have a bumper harvest. Immortal Mansion definitely won't be lacking in food and drink." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she smiled and said, "Sure, Daddy. The land here is ours. You can do whatever you want. Oh right, even if you want to raise some chickens and ducks, or feed some pigs and sheep, that's fine too. Just tell me." "That's great. Xiaohua, get 2 cattle first. I'll open up the land first. When spring comes," Zhang Kai said and looked at the sky habitually. Suddenly he was stunned. "Here? Why is there no sun here? How can we plant crops?" Of course, Zhang Xiaohua was delighted when she heard this. There were restrictions in Immortal Mansion. All kinds of wind, thunder, rain, and snow couldn't fall. Moreover, it was daytime every moment. There was no night at all. Ha! Zhang Xiaohua laughed and said, "Father, this place is almost like an immortal realm. It's like spring all year round. Please cast a monthly vote, please cast a recommendation vote, please collect it, please tip it. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to cast a recommendation vote or monthly vote." Chapter 1201. Like spring all year round? Zhang Kai was stunned. He was a native of Lu Town, and his footprints were all within 200 miles of Lu Town. How would he know that Rejuvenation Valley was like spring all year round? Zhang Kai waved his hand and said, "How can it be like spring all year round? There is no way to grow crops. It is only right to have 4 distinct seasons." Zhang Xiaohua did not know whether to laugh or cry. She nodded and said, "Yes, I will listen to you. Wait a moment. Let me see if this mansion-guarding spiritual steel can change the restriction here." Then, Zhang Xiaohua took out the mansion-guarding spiritual steel, put her hand on it, and closed her eyes. After a while, her face lit up and she opened her eyes and said, "Father, it really works. It is only here. The chi of heaven and earth in other places is very abundant. If the restriction is opened, I am afraid it will be bad for the holy mansion." As she spoke, she flew up into the air. She made a gesture and threw the mansion-guarding spiritual steel into the air. Then she pointed with her finger. Several rays of light flashed out from the steel and hit the restriction in the air. Then, there was a sizzling sound, like boiling water being poured on snow. The milky white color above the holy mansion was gradually torn apart, revealing the blue sky, as well as the white clouds and the noon sun. Zhang Xiaohua put away the mansion-guarding spiritual steel and landed from the air. She smiled and said, "Is this enough?" Zhang Kai looked at the sky as usual and nodded. "Yes, it is like this. This looks like living on the top of the mountain." "Ah, that's good." Zhang Xiaohua snickered inwardly. He would not open all the seals on the immortal abode. If he did, all the heaven-earth yuan qi in the immortal abode would escape. All he needed to do was make some slight changes to the seal above the white pavilion, turning it transparent. Then, wouldn't the space above the lake become Zhang Kai's? As for the growth of the crops, Zhang Xiaohua didn't care. The immortal abode was full of heaven and earth yuan qi, so what crops wouldn't grow? Following Zhang Kai to the pond, Mr. Lu, Elder Yu, and Zhang Xiaolong had already set up a simple stove and were brewing tea. Seeing Zhang Kai coming over, Mr. Lu said happily, "In-law, quickly come and try it. The lake water here can also be used to brew tea, and it's not much different from the spring water in the Guizhuang house." "Is that so?" Zhang Kai quickly walked over, picked up the teacup, and took a sip. Sure enough, it was as sweet as syrup. He couldn't help but smile. Indeed. Then he looked at the huge lake and said, "In-law, there's so much water. I'm afraid we won't be able to drink it all in our lifetime." Not bad. "Father, you won't have to worry about not having tea to drink in the future," Lu Qian said with a smile. Zhang Xiaohua also tasted a cup. Sure enough, the lake water was also full of heaven and earth yuan qi. Although it was a little less than the spring water in the Guizhuang house, there wasn't much of a difference in drinking it in the mouth. Everyone sat down and chatted, while Xiaohua Ji and the rest played with Zhang Byron at the side. After chatting for a while, Guo Sufei thought of something. Looking at Zhang Xiaohua, she hesitated for a moment before saying, "Xiaohua, mother has something to discuss with you." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned for a moment, then she smiled and said, "Mother, this will be our home in the future. If there's anything, please speak your mind." Guo Sufei smiled and said, "This place is very beautiful. It's 10,000 times better than the Guizhuang house. What is there for mother to be dissatisfied with?" "It's just that." Zhang Xiaohua saw that her mother was a little hesitant, so she said, "Mother, just say it. It's just that, in the Guizhuang house, your grandmother's grave and Xiaohua Ji's mother's grave are all behind the original small courtyard. What mother means is that the scenery here is very good. The feng shui must be excellent. If we are lively here, don't let your grandmother and the others miss us in the Guozhuang house. But this is the immortal's mansion. Mother is afraid. Hee mother, don't worry. Actually, I've already made up my mind. Once we've settled down, I'll move grandmother's coffins and Ji Xiaohua's mother's coffins here with my eldest brother and second brother. Since you've mentioned it today, I'll go with my eldest brother and second brother. Since we still need to buy cattle, let's do it together. Xiaohua, mother is just thinking about it. If there is anything inappropriate, just forget it. Guosufei dissuaded. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and replied, there's nothing inappropriate about it. The forest behind this building is very quiet, and it's not far from us. If you don't allow it, we'll bury grandma and auntie's coffins there. Mother and father go and have a look first. I will go with big brother and second brother. We will be back tomorrow. Guosufei quickly said, don't be so anxious. Mother just mentioned it first. How can I be anxious? We have all lived in Huanxi Mountain Villa for a long time. Grandmother must have been lonely for a long time. The sooner they are sent here, the sooner they will be happy. Zhang Xiaohua stood up and said, let's go, big brother and second brother. Let's go and pick up grandmother. I will go too. Zhang Kai stood up and said, there are rules when coffins are moved out. How do you know this? Oh, that's fine. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and asked Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu to prepare 2 carriages. Then, Zhang Xiaohua and the other 3 said goodbye to everyone and took the 2 carriages down Yao Mountain. They didn't come back until noon of the 3rd day. In the 2 carriages were the coffins of grandmother and Xiaohua's mother. Zhang Xiaohua had already cast a spell on the coffins. There were also a few sturdy-looking cattle accompanying them. In these 2 days, Guosufei had already found the place to bury the coffins. Zhang Xiaohua and the others also came back with daily hoes and other tools. It didn't take long for the graves to be ready. Everyone followed the rules, burned incense, and kowtowed. They buried the 2 coffins again and cultivated the soil. Then, Zhang Kai was focused on organizing the land and preparing to cultivate. This time, when he went down the mountain to buy cattle, he also bought a lot of seeds. He wanted to do a big job. Zhang Xiaohu had left the Misty School for several days. It was time to go back. Zhang Xiaohua sent Zhang Xiaohu, Chang'e, and Qin Qin down the mountain. Zhang Xiaohu still held Zhang Xiaohua and said, it's exactly 1 month before the 14th day of the 1st lunar month. Don't forget it. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, I won't. Yao Mountain is very close to Wuzhua Peak. When the time comes, you come here first and I will go with you. Then she took out a jade talisman from her arms and said, take this jade talisman. When you get here, just inject your true qi. Well, Zhang Xiaohu took it and put it in his arms. Then he said, by the way, if young Master Li, Chu Jing, and the others come back, what should I do? Just send Chu Jing here? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, I have 2 sisters-in-law. Can't you let young Master Li meet Sister Chiu Tong? Send someone to follow young Master Li to bury Miss May's coffin and send them here. If you can't come, give this jade talisman to young Master Li. Oh no, Chu Zhigao has the jade talisman I gave him. Ask him to come to Yao Mountain and crush the jade talisman. I will know. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua had arranged it well, Zhang Xiaohu didn't say anything. He turned over and unloaded the horse from the carriage. The 3 of them said goodbye to Zhang Xiaohua and went straight back to the Misty School. Sure enough, half a month later, Li Jinfeng and the others came back. After reporting to their families that they were safe and buried Miss May's coffin, they went to Yao Mountain Immortal Mansion. Seeing such a beautiful and fairy-like scene, they were stunned for a long time before they came to their senses. At this time, by the lakeside, Zhang Kai and Zhang Xiaolong had already tidied up a few plots of land. Some different seeds had already been sown, and the stove for cooking was also prepared. However, due to the large number of people, it was very troublesome to prepare the food. Seeing Li Jinfeng's weary face and hearing Li Jinfeng's story, Chiu Tong, who was very interested in Li Jinfeng, felt her face burning. She hid beside Oh Yen and didn't talk to Li Jinfeng directly. Li Jinfeng didn't know that Chiu Tong's attitude towards him had changed. First he sighed, After listening to Zhang Xiaohua's explanation, he was overjoyed. However, when he saw Qiu Tong, he became silent again. He wasn't as calm and composed as he was in front of Mei Qinglian. Zhang Xiaohua was secretly observing from the side. She saw that the two of them wanted to say something, but they were shy and did not say anything. They were also thinking about each other. They often glanced at each other and then pretended not to notice. Then, they would glance at each other and then look away. It was like the feelings of a teenage couple. Zhang Xiaohua found it very funny, but when he thought of the sweet and distant relationship between her and him, Zhang Xiaohua missed the dream of being together with him in dire straits. I wonder, how is the discussion between the three immortal Dao sects, the alliance of righteous Dao, and the other sects of the pugilistic world? Will they attack the Tenryu sect? Zhang Xiaohua was very curious. The three immortal Dao sects and the alliance of righteous Dao were not as relaxed as Zhang Xiaohua. They were going to attack the Tenryu sect on a whim. They had lost many people in the fight for the Yaoshan immortal abode. Even the seniors of the immortal Dao sects were seriously injured. The three immortal Dao sects, the alliance of righteous Dao, and a few other large sects had discussed for 2 days at the foot of Yaoshan Mountain. They all felt that although the heavenly king of the Tenryu sect had been seriously injured, the disciples below the heavenly king level had not suffered any casualties. On the other hand, the various sects at the foot of Yaoshan Mountain had lost many high-ranking disciples and ordinary disciples. The strength of the various sects had decreased greatly. If they were to fight against the disciples of the Tenryu sect, they would not have much chance of winning. The most important thing was that although everyone suspected that the Tenryu sect had set up a trap, there was no evidence at all. Other than the Beidou school's headmaster who saw some black flags, even the Dalan Temple's master Tiangang did not see anything. Since there was no justification for the attack, everyone's suspicions died down. In the past 2 days, many disciples from various sects had left, so there was no news of the tragedy. Therefore, Alliance Master Zhang San of the Alliance of Righteous Dao proposed that the various sects send their elite disciples to the Tenryu sect to investigate carefully to see if there were any clues left behind by the Tenryu sect. The various sects would return to their respective sects to recuperate and restore their strength. They would discuss the details after they found the Tenryu sect's flaws. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip me. Chapter 1202. Zhang Xiaohua's Beidou school was newly built and only had a few junior sisters and disciples. It was still far from being a big school, so of course, she didn't know about the news in Jianghu. While she trained her disciples, she also hoped that the various sects in Jianghu would work together to attack the Tenryu sect. Back to the Yaoshan immortal abode, Zhang Xiaohua used the immortal's guardian spirit steel to set up a spirit gathering array in the palace where the phoenix had undergone nirvana. It gathered the qi of heaven and earth drifting within the immortal abode, as well as the qi of heaven and earth in the air above Yaoshan. The concentration of qi of heaven and earth in the palace increased by the day. A month's time wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. For the Misty School, it was just a short period of recuperation and preparation. But for the Beidou school, this month's time was absolutely crucial. It was an earth-shattering change. For the people of Jianghu, the path of immortality was an ethereal and wonderful hope. There was an insurmountable gap between the path of martial arts and the path of immortality. In order to overcome this gap, the various sects in Jianghu racked their brains to find a smooth path to the path of immortality. The path of immortality's incense sect, the Dalan Temple, and the Alliance of Righteousness's path of martial arts set aside their personal grudges and joined hands to prepare a secret location, hoping to find a way to inherit the path of immortality in the secret location. All of this was because of the qi of heaven and earth. The lack of qi of heaven and earth was the main culprit behind the path of immortality 10,000 years ago. With the support of Zhang Xiaohua's spirit gathering array and the gradual recovery of qi of heaven and earth, the Beidou school of Yaoshan immortal abode seized the opportunity to rise to the top of the path of immortality. Especially with the discovery of the Peiyuan pill, it was like Zhang Xiaohu's Dantian had Yang Haoya's True Yuan. It allowed the Beidou school's disciples to have their first strand of true qi in their dantians when they first started cultivating the Carefree Sutra. They were also able to sense qi of heaven and earth at the first moment. What was difficult for others to draw qi into their bodies was too easy for them. Could it be that, in ancient times, stepping into the path of immortality was an extremely simple matter? Or is it that the 6 disciples of my Beidou school are all rare talents? Zhang Xiaohua looked at the disciples sitting cross-legged under the spirit-gathering array. She pinched the beard that had grown out of their chins and fell into deep thought. Under the 5-element spirit-gathering array, Zhang Xiaohua's disciples, with the exception of Zhang Byron who was still lying down and sleeping, were all sitting cross-legged, pretending to be serious in their cultivation. Nie Qinyu was the first disciple Zhang Xiaohua had taught the first level of the Carefree Sutra. Nie Qinyu had already started cultivating diligently when Zhang Xiaohua was spreading the scourge of the incense cult. However, the qi of heaven and earth in Rejuvenation Valley was still limited. Although Nie Qinyu could sense qi of heaven and earth, the amount of qi that she could draw into her body was still very small. She was far from being able to refine it into true qi. Under the spirit-gathering array, there was sufficient qi of heaven and earth to draw in. In addition, there was also a strand of true qi formed by the Peiyuan pill in her dantian. Under such circumstances, Nie Qinyu could easily draw the qi of heaven and earth into her body and refine it into her first strand of true qi. Before this, Zhang Xiaohua had also given Nie Qinyu a meridian-nourishing pill, which had perfectly refined Nie Qinyu's meridians. This was like adding wings to a tiger. Nie Qinyu had become the first disciple of Beidou school to set foot on the immortal Tao, and this had only taken Nie Qinyu 2 days. The second disciple to set foot on the immortal Tao had exceeded Zhang Xiaohua's expectations. Zhang Xiaohua had originally thought that this person would be Shui Tiantian. Unexpectedly, the ordinary-looking Ji Xiaohua, who had never practiced martial arts, had never come into contact with internal energy, and had never been placed with high hopes, had set foot on the immortal Tao 15 days later than Nie Qinyu and 3 days earlier than Shui Tiantian. This made Zhang Xiaohua go wild with joy. After all, this was still someone named Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua was happy to think that he could achieve such an achievement. Seeing that Ji Xiaohua, who had no foundation in martial arts, had set foot on the immortal Tao 1 step earlier than her, Shui Tiantian, who had always wanted to compete with Ji Xiaohua for the position of senior brother, became even more determined. However, it still took him 20 days to form his first strand of true qi in his dantian. In comparison, Chu Jing was neither hot nor cold. He set foot on the immortal Tao on the 22nd day. When Chu Zhigao and Chu Jing's grandmother learned of this, they ran to a corner of the lake, drew a small circle, burned some paper, and kowtowed with tears streaming down their faces, as if to comfort the ancestors of the Chu family in the immortal Tao. After the young disciples set foot on the immortal Tao, O Yen and Zhang Pinger showed no signs of breaking through for the time being. After another 5 days, on the 27th day, O Yen, who had no foundation in martial arts, set foot on the immortal Tao before Zhang Pinger. Zhang Pinger took 29 days to form her first strand of true qi in her dantian. Zhang Xiaohua thought of his discerning eyes and the fact that his disciples were all peerless talents. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but feel proud. If he knew that Peacock, Qin Qin, and Yuan only had 18 days to stay in the inheritance palace of the incense cult, and that the 3 of them also set foot on the path of immortality within the time limit, what would he think? According to the rules of the incense cult, among these 6 disciples, only Nie Qinyu and Ji Xiaohua could be considered to have truly inherited the incense cult, and the other 4 were going to be eliminated? Beidou School's spirit gathering array and incense cult's spirit gathering array was much stronger? From this, one could see how important the Immortal Mansion was to the 3 Immortal Tao sections. One could also understand why Master Tiangang, Reverend Shu Qing, and Reverend Hao Yun would risk their lives in order to seize the Immortal Mansion into their own hands. This, if the Immortal Mansion was in the hands of the incense cult, wouldn't they be able to create many Immortal Tao disciples in a short period of time? How could Reverend Jingyi be worried about her own inheritance? As for the incense cult, Misty School, and Shundao sect, the origin of the three immortal Dao sects, what about the secret plane? If the incense cult lost the Yaoshan immortal mansion, how could they not put all their energy into it? Just as Zhang Xiaohua was happily watching the 6 disciples under the spirit gathering array absorb the spirit gathering array into their bodies, and Zhang Byron was sleeping soundly. The world's spirit gathering array was gradually being absorbed along with his breathing, and Little Black and Little Yellow were also using a strange posture beside him. The world's spirit gathering array was slowly being inhaled and exhaled by the 2 little things. In the Nanzhao town, which was hundreds of miles away from the secret plane, in the courtyard of a big family, Reverend Jingyi was sitting in a rather large central room, talking to Reverend Shu Qing, Reverend Xuezhen, Peacock, Qin Qin, and Yin. Reverend Jingyi frowned slightly and whispered, "Yatin, Immortal Mansion, has there been no movement?" Reporting to the sect leader, since the day Ren Xiaoyao took back the steps to Immortal Mansion, they haven't been put down, and no one has come down from Yaoshan. Reverend Xuezhen cupped her hands and said, "That guy is actually practicing in seclusion?" Qin Qin cried, "Not necessarily." Reverend Jingyi shook her head and said, "Every time the steps to Immortal Mansion are used, the amount of world spirit gathering array is enormous. I think, if Ren Xiaoyao wants to enter and leave Immortal Mansion, there must be another simple way. It's just that, as for what method, it's not something we can recklessly guess." Sect leader, didn't Ren Xiaoyao warn us? Don't leave anyone near Yaoshan. If we eat the disciples of the incense cult and investigate nearby, I'm afraid we'll provoke him and make him unhappy. Peacock said worriedly, "Hee, it's not just the disciples of the incense cult who aren't afraid. The Dalan Temple, between the clouds and the water, and the Righteous Alliance, which one of them didn't send spies?" Reverend Jingyi waved her hand and said with a smile, "Even if Ren Xiaoyao finds out, we can just say that this disciple is a registered disciple of the incense cult. When he finds out, she has already been expelled from the cult. What she did at Yaoshan is her own behavior. It has nothing to do with the incense cult." Hee, sect leader is wise. Qin Qin heard this and laughed. "That guy will have nothing to say. Forget it, forget it. Let's not talk about Yaoshan and Beta School anymore. We were at Yaoshan, we were so angry, we tore our faces apart, and we even sacrificed Junior Shujie's life, but we still didn't gain any advantage. Instead, some nameless guy got ahead of us. I really don't know how he managed to control the entire Immortal Mansion." Reverend Shu Qing waved her hand and said, "That guy is the best at stepping on dog shit." Qin Qin concluded, "Oh right, Junior Xuezhen, is there any news from the Dalan Temple?" Sect leader, ever since the monks of the Dalan Temple entered Baoshan, we couldn't find any trace of them. Our disciples didn't dare to go too deep, and after 10 days of investigation, we still couldn't find any news. Hee, it's not a big deal. Who would have thought that the disciples of the incense cult have already returned to Dianqi Lake, and we can still stay in Nanzhao town. We'll just wait until tomorrow night, and the Dalan Temple will appear at Wuzhua Peak on time. Sect leader is wise, hiding in the city. That's right, I was thinking of finding a remote mountain village to settle down. What about the Righteous Alliance? Reverend Jingyi asked with a smile. The evil tiger gang in this area seems to be a small branch of the Righteous Alliance. Wouldn't Alliance leader Zhang San be like a fish in water here? He's long gone. Reverend Xuezhen laughed. Then, Misty School. What's Zhang Xiaohu doing? Sect leader, there's something strange about the Misty School. Reverend Xuezhen looked confused. I've sent disciples to inform Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng, but both of them said they were busy with internal affairs and couldn't come in person. That's fine, I have some spies among the disciples of Wuming Hall, but they also disappeared without a trace. There's no news at all. It's really strange. Then, what about the immortal senior from the Misty School? Is there any news? No. My disciples didn't find anything useful. If it wasn't for my scruples, when we were in the secluded ground, I would have captured Li Jian and the others and asked them what had happened to the ethereal sect. Please don't. Reverend Jingyi hurriedly waved her hand and said, to be able to restore the internal strength of Li Jian and thousands of other Misty School disciples. I'm afraid that even Master Tiangang of the Dalan Temple can't compare to this level of cultivation. At this juncture, we'd better hide. Chapter 1203. Leader, it's strange. Since the Misty School has such a senior immortal, why didn't he do anything when the Misty School was destroyed? Even this Yaoshan immortal abode. He didn't appear? Could it be that he doesn't care about the Yaoshan immortal abode? Shuqing Nun was surprised. Who knows? Nun Jingyi smiled bitterly. No matter whether he appeared or not, wouldn't Ren Xiaoyao have taken advantage of him in the end? If I knew this would happen, I would have let Shi Mujuan stab him to death on Lingxiang Peak. I'm afraid Shi Mujuan is no match for Ren Xiaoyao. Peacock reminded her in a low voice. Isn't that so? Nun Jingyi gritted her teeth at the mention of this matter. Of all my calculations, I never thought that senior martial sister Jing Gang, Shi Mujuan and Yu Zhuochuan were killed by this bastard. Sigh, it's not just leader. Although Elder Jing Gang and her 2 disciples have grudges against Ren Xiaoyao, but, when it happened he always had an alibi. We were all confused by his strength and thought that he was just a brute with great strength. Who would have thought that he was a man of immortality? Suddenly, Nun Jingyi seemed to have thought of something. Her expression was very interesting. Shuqing Nun noticed it and asked curiously, Leader? What did you think of? Grand Elder. I suddenly thought, is Ren Xiaoyao the person who has a deep connection with the Misty School? Ah? Peacock and Qinshan exclaimed and blurted out, No. No way. Shuqing Nun also shook her head slightly. I think it's impossible too. Nun Jingyi thought for a moment and said, Ren Xiaoyao came from Rejuvenation Valley with Peacock. Ever since Ren Xiaoyao came, how many things have happened in my sect? The sudden change in Twilight Orchid, the death of Grand Elder Jing Gang, the tremor in Mount Jihua, the collapse of the sect-protecting formation. Yes, there were also the thousands of Misty School disciples at Shixin Peak recovering their martial arts. I wouldn't have dared to think about these things in the past. But they all happened in the short span of a few months. I don't believe that it has nothing to do with Ren Xiaoyao. Hee, Jingyi, every single one of the things you've mentioned is shocking and can't be done without great magical powers. According to what I know, the sudden change in the Orchid Dusk refinement, the shaking of Mount Jihua, and the collapse of the sect-protecting formation are all natural disasters. I'm afraid only immortals can do these kinds of things related to heaven and earth. As for the other 2, they might be Ren Xiaoyao's doing. Shuqing Nun nodded. Ren Xiaoyao has only been at Shixin Peak for a little more than 2 months. To recover the martial arts of thousands of Misty School disciples. I don't think he has that much time. Peacock thought for a moment and said, Also, who knows if the martial arts of the Misty School disciples were recovered at Shixin Peak or after they left Dianqi Lake. Qinshan also added, Leader, Swift said softly, whether Ren Xiaoyao is an immortal or not, that's another matter. Didn't you hear what Alliance leader Zhang San said? Ren Xiaoyao is only a martial artist. It's because he obtained the immortal mansion that he has so many magical powers. Jingyi Nun pondered for a moment and shook her head. If Ren Xiaoyao killed Great Elder Jing Gang, all of this can be easily explained. If it wasn't him, then it's even more confusing. Many things can't be explained. But if Ren Xiaoyao is only a martial artist and he borrowed the power of the immortal mansion, then what we saw in the immortal mansion can be explained. Sigh, let's not talk about it. Even if Ren Xiaoyao is the real culprit, we can't do anything if he hides in the immortal mansion of Mount Yaoshan. Leader is right. Master Jing Xian's death is as confusing as Master Jing Gang's death. At that time, Ren Xiaoyao hadn't come to our incense cult. It's not good to blame Ren Xiaoyao. Peacock agreed. Everything depends on strength. Let's first deal with the matter of the secret plane. If we can find the method of inheritance in the secret plane this year, our incense cult will be able to cultivate more immortal disciples. In a few years, not only our incense cult, but also the Dalan Temple, Misty School, and even the Alliance of Righteous Path will have many immortal disciples. At that time, we'll be able to raise our voices and verify this matter with Ren Xiaoyao. Jingyi Nun said coldly, Misty School's Zhang Xiaohu, has he left for the Five-Claw Peak? Leader, 5 days ago, I sent a disciple to Ethereal Heights to urge Zhang Xiaohu. I think he won't delay the gathering tomorrow. Of course, the secret plane is a great temptation for the 4 immortal sections. Zhang Xiaohu has no reason not to be tempted. Moreover, this is also a promise from him. Abbess Jing Yi suddenly thought of something and turned to ask, That's right, where's Bai Yanqiu from Shuiyun Club? She's a very ambitious woman. About the secret plane, we have to be careful of her. Leader, Bai Yanqiu went all the way south. After walking for 100 miles, she disappeared. I can't tell. Hee, since there is no trace of them, that is extremely normal. If we let our disciples see their traces all the time, it would be more conspicuous if we tried to cover it up. Abbess Jingyi laughed and said, Only Chang Xingdashi, Zhang San, Alliance leader Zhang San, and our cult were conspiring about the secret plane. Even Zhang Xiaohu only found out about it a month ago. Even if Bai Yanqiu's magical power is extensive, she definitely wouldn't know that after we left Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, we immediately made our move at Five-Claw Peak. She must have hurried back with Immortal Hao Yun to heal. Yes, if Chen Chen didn't get the 9-heaven Black Lotus seed in Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, my injury wouldn't have healed as fast as us. Immortal Hao Yun and the others must still be worried about their injuries. Shuqing Nun said with a smile. That's right. In this way, apart from Beidou School, my fragrance cult has benefited the most from Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. Jingyi Nun smiled and said, In addition to the Heaven and Earth handkerchief, the 9-heaven Black Lotus seed, 2 flying swords, several magic weapons, and even 3 immortal cultivation methods. Yes, leader. This Ren Xiaoyao is definitely not a heartless person. Otherwise, he would never let us take these things away. Peacock nodded and said, Sigh, even if that's the case, senior sister, think about it again. In this Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, how many good things would there be? Chen Chen was quite envious. This guy is really lucky. No matter how many treasures there are, they're still his. What's there to be envious about? Peacock glared at her. That guy. Chen Chen narrowed her eyes and clenched her teeth tightly. It was as if she wanted to bite off more things from that guy in her heart. In the distant Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, that guy in Chen Chen's heart had already been bitten into 70 or 80 pieces. At this time, he was teaching Nye Qianyu some formation problems. To be honest, as a master, he was not very competent. Other than providing some cultivation methods, some elixirs, some cultivation experience, and some formation arrangements, he could not explain the other details of cultivation, things to pay attention to, and so on. After all, Zhang Xiaohua's method of cultivating the Carefree Sutra was rather strange. Who in this world would dare to try it? Even Zhang Bairen would not dare. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua knew his own situation. From the beginning, he had planned to let each disciple walk on their own path of cultivation. As the master, he only gave a little guidance. In this way, these 7 disciples would have 7 different paths? Fortunately, other than the Carefree Sutra and the orthodoxy of Fire Dragon Immortal, there were also many cultivation methods in the White Attic. They were not inferior to the inheritance of the Misty School. In addition to the red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple attic, there were also cultivation methods and artifacts that Zhang Xiaohua did not have the ability to obtain. This Beidou School's disciples could be said to have unlimited room for development and unlimited potential. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua, who was demonstrating the incantation to Nye Qianyu, felt his heart throbbing. It was as if there were countless invisible hands grasping his heart tightly and squeezing it into countless tiny pieces. Zhang Xiaohua was caught off guard. He screamed and fell into the void unknowingly. Senior brother sect leader. Nye Qianyu was anxious. Just as she was about to go forward, she saw the pale-faced Zhang Xiaohua quickly fly up again. His eyes were full of fear and his forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. He looked around in panic. "Master!" The disciples who were cultivating nearby were also awakened and ran over. "All right, it's all right." Zhang Xiaohua straightened his body and took a deep breath. He waved his hand and said, "I'm all right. You all can leave for now." "This?" "Yes, Master." After hearing this, the disciples hesitated for a while and left. Byron and the two little ones also left. After everyone left, Zhang Xiaohua flew to the spirit-gathering array and sat down cross-legged. He closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. The sudden throbbing just now was very short. When Nye Qinyu cried out, the throbbing had already disappeared without a trace. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua stretched out his hands. The fingers on his left and right hands constantly moved, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, from simple to complex, and finally almost mysterious. Zhang Xiaohua's body gradually formed a faint shadow. The shadow was like a glimmer of light, gradually becoming clear. Looking at the gradually forming outline, it was really Zhang Xiaohua's sky Dao starry sky, the increasingly clear hand of karma. And the movement of Zhang Xiaohua's technique was exactly the way of karma that he had been comprehending recently. With a loud bang, just when the hand of karma had a certain degree of outline, Zhang Xiaohua's heart moved again. He could no longer control the qi between his fingers. Zhang Xiaohua had no choice but to withdraw his hands. The hand of light and shadow around him suddenly collapsed. Then, Zhang Xiaohua spat out a small mouthful of blood. His face was full of dispiritedness. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and sat cross-legged. He looked up at the spirit-gathering array that was not very rich in the qi of heaven and earth. He took out a small yuan stone from his arms and adjusted his breathing. After an unknown period of time, a faint brilliance appeared from the void and flew to Zhang Xiaohua. It stopped in front of Zhang Xiaohua and stopped moving. Chapter 1204. Zhang Xiaohua opened her eyes and pinched the light with her hand. She scanned it with her divine sense and couldn't help but smile. "What's wrong? It's already the 14th of the first lunar month?" "Alas, it's true. A few days ago, Mother and Father were still decorating the small building with lanterns and decorations, saying that it's the new year. This time, it's really fast." "Second brother, wait a moment. I'll be there in a while." As Zhang Xiaohua spoke, she patted the light, and it flew away with a whoosh and disappeared. "Alas, I really don't know what happened just now." Zhang Xiaohua stood up and thought to herself, "I've never encountered such a situation before. The Karma Hands incantation is really profound. I thought that with my cultivation in the late stage of qi refining, even if I can't comprehend half of it, I should be able to complete the incantation. At least, I should be able to understand where this throbbing came from. But I didn't expect that, not only did I not complete the incantation, but I also suffered a backlash. If it wasn't for my shallow understanding of the Karma Hand, I'm afraid that I would have been seriously injured." Zhang Xiaohua thought and walked out of the round palace. Nye Qinyu and the others didn't leave. They just stayed outside and waited. When they saw Zhang Xiaohua come out, they all looked worried and went forward to ask. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Master is fine. It's just that there are some things that I don't understand. You don't have to worry." Then she looked outside and said, "You all can continue to cultivate like before. Master will go out for a while. I'll be back in 2 days." "Okay, Master, be careful." "Senior brother sect leader, be careful." Everyone bowed respectfully and flew back into the palace to continue cultivating. Seeing Little Black and Little Yellow, Zhang Xiaohua's heart moved. She wanted to call the two little things, but on second thought, the two little things looked very similar to their mother. Nun Jingyi and Nun Shuqing would definitely recognize them. If they misunderstood, the orchid and Mulyen were thousands of lives. Even if she had 100 mouths, she wouldn't be able to clear her name. Little Black and Little Yellow. It was better not to bring them along. Little Yellow and Little Black seemed to have felt it as well. They paused in midair and turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand, and they followed the crowd into the palace. The Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi in the spirit-gathering array was exactly what they liked. They would not be happy if they did not stay in there for a while longer. When Zhang Xiaohua appeared in front of Zhang Xiaohu and the others, everyone except Zhang Xiaohu was stunned. They immediately bowed and said, "Congratulations on the establishment of Beidou School. Greetings, Headmaster Zhang." When Zhang Xiaohua saw this, she was slightly stunned. Then she flicked her sleeves and helped everyone up. She smiled and said, "We're all old acquaintances. There's no need to be so courteous." What surprised Zhang Xiaohua was that in addition to Zhang Xiaohu, there were also Hu Yuni, Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, Wen Wenhai, Lu Yueming, Xue Qing, Ant Qin, Changge, Chen Chen, and others at the foot of Yaoshan Mountain. "Second brother, are you all going to the secret plane? Since all of you are here, what about ethereal heights?" Zhang Xiaohua asked in surprise. Of course we're going to the secret plane, but not all of us are going. It's still early now. We hid our whereabouts all the way and came here in several directions. Naturally, there are some things we need to discuss with Beidou School." Beidou School? Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua looked at the sky and nodded. It's almost noon now. There's still some time before evening. Come on, please come to the palace for a chat. With that, she threw out the cross-shaped magic instrument and called everyone to come into the light circle. With a flash of light, everyone came to the Lingxiao Palace. Needless to say, the people of Misty School only woke up from the shock after a long time. Their eyes were filled with eagerness and awe. They looked at Zhang Xiaohua with more respect. Zhang Xiaohua sat on the central throne and smiled in a low voice. "Everyone, the position in the Lingxiao Palace is determined by the profound cultivation. It's not that I don't want you to come close. Please forgive me." Sect leader Zhang, although your sect did not deliberately publicize the matter of the Yaoshan immortal abode, the unimaginable abnormality has long been spread among the disciples of various sections. The name of the Lingxiao Palace is also strange. My ethereal sect has already received the news from the pugilistic world. If we can all get close to the central throne, I'm afraid this immortal mansion would have been controlled by the Dalan Temple and the Xiangxiang cult. Hu Yuni bowed and smiled. "Yes, Elder Hu is right. I didn't mean to be rude." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "Oh right, Elder Hu, I wonder, does your Misty School have anything to discuss with my Beidou School?" Hu Yuni turned around and glanced at Zhang Xiaohu. Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, "Elder Hu, Xiaohua is this seat's blood brother. If it's related to this seat, then there's naturally no need for you to step forward. This seat only needs to talk to him. But if it's something related to the Misty School, Xiaohua has already helped my Misty School a lot. My Misty School? To be honest, I can't repay him. So, it's not easy for me to talk about the matters between the Misty School and Beidou School." Master Zhang, my big sect leader means, if he asks, I'm afraid you won't agree to everything. If you were alone in the past, we would have just talked about it. But now you're the master of Beidou School and you have disciples. Your first consideration should be the Beidou School's interests. So, it's better for us to talk to you. Li Jian said with a smile. That's right. I also feel that Master Zhang is too good to my Misty School. If I can't be intimate with Beidou School in the future, I'll be really unhappy. Lu Qingyang didn't dare to speak loudly. I see. Zhang Xiaohua patted his head and thought, maybe I should change my attitude. I can't just be a little brother who helps others. So, he nodded and said, the two elders are right. Since you all represent the Misty School, I should also consider myself as a member of Beidou School and not treat myself as Zhang Xiaohu's brother. That's right. In the Jianghu, brotherhood is precious, but compared to the inheritance of a sect, a person's life is too short. We should still put the interests of the sect first. Wen Wenhai also nodded and said, Yes, I underestimated you. Thank you for your advice, heroine. Please wait a moment. As Zhang Xiaohua spoke, he waved his big sleeves and said loudly, Nye Qinyu, O Yen, wait a moment. After that, a light flashed and O Yen and Nye Qinyu appeared out of thin air, standing right next to the people from Misty School. O Yen and Nye Qinyu were slightly stunned when they saw the people from Misty School, but they still bowed to Zhang Xiaohua first. Greetings, senior brother sect leader. Yes, I'm sorry to disturb your cultivation. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, everyone from Misty School wants to talk to my Beidou School. I am not experienced enough. One of you is the eldest senior sister, and the other is experienced in business. Help me make a decision. Yes, senior brother sect leader. The two pretended to be serious and saluted. Then, they turned around and greeted the people from Misty School. Hu Yuni and the others had watched O Yan grow up. At this time, when they saw O Yan's appearance, they couldn't help but smile. Lu Qingyang even shouted, Yanzi, are you cultivating? You can cultivate internal energy? O Yan smiled and said, yes, fifth brother. Senior brother sect leader has been kind enough to teach me the supreme secret of Beidou School. Now I can be considered to have set foot on the path of immortality. Ah? Hu Yuni and the others were surprised. Apart from being surprised, they were also full of expectation and disbelief. Li Jian stuttered, Yanzi, Beidou School was only established a month ago. You also just came to Yaoshan a month ago. How could you? Second brother, these are the methods of our Beidou School's senior brother sect leader. I feel like I'm in a dream. O Yan said with a smile. That's good, that's good. My third brother can rest in peace in the underworld. Hu Yuni's eyes were almost filled with tears. At the mention of O Peng, O Yan's expression turned gloomy. She lowered her head for a moment, then bowed and said, Elder Hu, let's not talk about the past. May I know why your esteemed sect came here today to discuss with my Beidou School? Then she apologized to Nye Qinyu, eldest senior sister, I'm very familiar with the Misty School. I may have overstepped my boundaries. Please don't take it to heart. Nye Qinyu hurriedly smiled and said, don't say that, junior sister. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Junior sister is in charge of all the chores in Beidou School. This is also senior brother sect leader's order. I'll just listen from the side. In the end, it's still up to eldest senior sister and senior brother sect leader to decide. O Yan said modestly. O Yan turned to Hu Yuni and said, Beidou School is newly established. Everything is my first time. Please forgive me, Elder Hu. It's fine, it's fine. Who doesn't have a first time in their life? Hu Yuni stroked his beard and said, since ancient times, heroes have always been young. In the future, the Jianghu should be yours. I'm old. I don't dare. Elder Hu, please enlighten me. Yan said, well, this time I came to Misty School because I have 3 things to discuss with Beidou School. Hu Yuni said with a serious face. 3 things? O Yan nodded. Elder Hu, please tell me one by one. Sect leader Zhang. Hu Yuni looked at O Yan, then cupped his hands and said to Zhang Xiaohua, actually, sect leader Zhang's kindness to Misty School is like a new life. To be honest, my Misty School's conditions to Beidou School are somewhat belittling. Even if these conditions are not discussed with Beidou School, as long as Beidou School needs my Misty School to do something, my Misty School should agree to it. Didn't Elder Hu say it just now? In the past, I was the one who helped my second brother, so it can be considered I's own matters. These matters, everyone is well aware of them. Just use them as the basis for the cooperation between our 2 sections. There's no need to mention them again. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Sect leader Zhang's breadth of mind. I admire you. Hu Yuni nodded and said, I remember that when sect leader Zhang took Shui Tian in as your disciple, you asked Tian about the fist techniques she used to practice in Misty School. After my investigation, I confirmed that there are a total of 321 disciples in the Young Eagle Hall of Misty School who practiced Beidou School's fist techniques under Zhang Qingyue and Shui Tiantian's guidance. Furthermore, there are still 303 disciples alive. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Chidian.com. Chapter 1205. Seeing that O Yan was somewhat puzzled, Hu Yuni continued, Beidou School is newly established, and there's only sect leader Zhang and 7 disciples in the school. This really doesn't match the reputation of Beidou School. My Misty School has nothing to congratulate you on. These 302 disciples will be sent to Beidou school as ordinary disciples. Firstly, it's a congratulatory gift, and secondly, it's a bit of repayment for sect leader Zhang's kindness to my misty school. Oh Yen stared blankly for a moment, then her face immediately lit up with joy. She said happily, Elder Hu's gift is very good. It can be said to be timely assistance. However, these Kitty Hawk Hall disciples have been nurtured by Misty School since they were young. Elder Hu, doesn't your heart ache if you give them to my Beidou school all of a sudden? Hee, Yen Zi's words are very true. These 302 disciples were all people I took away from Misty Mountain Villa in the past. These many years I've been living with them day and night, and I have deep feelings for them. I indeed have high hopes for them. However, if these disciples are compared to the great kindness that Beidou school has shown to my Misty school, the difference is too great. Only by giving these disciples to Beidou school and expanding Beidou school's strength can I express my Misty school's gratitude. That's right, Elder Hu. These 302 Kitty Hawk Hall disciples have been nurtured by Misty school since they were young. Since they were young, they've regarded Misty school as their sect. Now that they've suddenly come to Beidou school, I'm afraid it won't be easy to restrain them. Oh Yen asked calmly. Hu Yuni nodded and said, Yen Zi's question is indeed good. However, these disciples are still young, and most of them are about the same age as Shui Tian. They've been living outside Misty Mountain Villa for the past few years, and their feelings towards Misty School are a lot weaker than those of ordinary disciples. Of course, I'm not saying that they don't have Misty School in their hearts. It's just that people strive for greater heights, and water flows to lower depths. Beidou school stands at the forefront of the path of immortality and occupies Mount Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. If they know that they can cultivate an immortal mansion, I'm afraid not everyone will fight to the death. Oh Yen nodded slightly. Also, with the relationship between sect leader Zhang of the Misty School and sect leader Zhang of your sect, I'm sure they'll be able to accept the transfer from the Misty School to the Beidou School. Elder Hu said with a smile. Sect leader Zhang, to be honest, there are some drawbacks in sending young disciples here. If it were any other sect, our Misty School would never dare to do such a thing. It's easy to cause misunderstandings. When Wenhai cupped his hands and said, However, I'm thinking the same thing as you, Elder Hu. Beidou School doesn't lack anything except for manpower. As for the development of Beidou School, if we only rely on Miss O, Miss Nye, Shui Tian, and the others, I'm afraid we won't be able to develop even a little bit in the next 10 years. Elder Hu made this suggestion and gang leader Zhang also agreed. I think it's really feasible, so I made the suggestion. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Zhang Xiaohu's smiling face and knew that this guy must know that she had the soul-absorbing pill and wasn't afraid of spies, so she agreed. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua did not care about what tricks the ethereal sect had up their sleeves. After all, in this immortal abode, with the mansion guarding spiritual steel in hand, everyone could only surrender and be manipulated. Zhang Xiaohua still had a lot of trust in Wenhai. Seeing Wenhai's explanation, she nodded slightly and said, I understand what Swordsman Wen said. Since it's the Misty School's kindness, you won't be disrespectful. Hee, that's great. Wenhai said with a smile. As for the handover of the 302 disciples, let O Yen be in charge after the secret plane. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Thank you for your trust, sect leader Zhang. Elder Hu cupped his hands and said, Only if sect leader Zhang accepts these 302 disciples will we have the face to discuss the second matter with sect leader Zhang. Elder Hu, what's the second matter? Please enlighten us. Oh Yen nodded. Speaking of the second matter, it has something to do with Valley Master Nye of Rejuvenation Valley. Elder Hu glanced at Nye Qinyu and said with a smile. What about Rejuvenation Valley? Nye Qinyu asked curiously. A month ago, Rejuvenation Valley visited our Misty School and formed an alliance with our Misty School. Oh, of course, our Misty School isn't a member of their Yuli alliance. It's a mutually supportive relationship. Hu Yuni explained, when I heard Valley Master Nye mention the relationship between Rejuvenation Valley and the incense cult, I suddenly had an epiphany. I want to form a complementary relationship with Beidou School, just like Rejuvenation Valley and the incense cult. Zhang Xiaohua raised her eyebrows. Nie Qinyu asked, Elder Hu, what are your plans? It's simple. Every year, our Misty School can help Beidou School select young disciples with outstanding aptitudes and send them to Beidou School until Beidou School has the ability to select disciples. What does our Beidou School have to do? Yen asked after a moment of contemplation. Every year, your school needs to help our Misty School promote 5 disciples to step onto the path of immortality. 5 disciples? Yen shook her head and said, how many immortal path disciples are there in the pugilistic world? Your Misty School wants our Beidou School to promote 5 immortal path disciples every year. That's impossible. Yen didn't report this to Zhang Xiaohua. Instead, she directly denied it. This. Hu Yuni thought for a moment, then smiled bitterly and said, actually, what our Misty School can do for Beidou School is too little. We can only show the strength of our Misty School in the next few years. When the Beidou School's young disciples are fully developed, our Misty School won't be able to catch the eye of Beidou School. So, overall, I'm afraid that our Misty School won't have too many immortal path experts. Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. Just as she was about to agree, Yen said, Elder Hu, that's not right. As the saying goes, small streams flow long. Our Beidou School's disciples are all focused on cultivation. I'm afraid that we won't interfere much with worldly affairs. If our Misty School does a good job, we might be able to hand over everything to the Misty School in the future. Elder Hu was overjoyed when he heard this. He smiled and said, if that's the case, the number of disciples per year can be reduced to 4. 2. Yen said, our Beidou School still has its own disciples. 2 is indeed too little. How about 3? Elder Hu said earnestly. This. Yen turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua. She seemed to be satisfied and wanted Zhang Xiaohua to make the decision. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, I'll allow this, but there are still some other conditions. Approved? Hu Yuni was stunned. Then he was overjoyed. How many immortal path disciples could there be in the pugilistic world? Beidou School could actually let 3 Misty School disciples enter the path of immortality every year. Not to mention 5 years, in just 3 years, 9 disciples would enter the path of immortality. This was comparable to the incense cult. Zhang Xiaohu didn't reveal Hu Yuni's bottom line in advance, but judging from his surprised expression, it was obviously beyond his expectations. Yes, I'll allow it. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, not only that, everyone in the Misty School in the main hall, as long as it's possible, I can help you enter the path of immortality. Ah? When Wenhai, Lu Yueming, and Xue Qing's faces were flushed. They knew that Zhang Xiaohu was about the same age as them. If Zhang Xiaohu could enter the path of immortality, then so could they. Li Jian and the others were already old, so Zhang Xiaohua's words were obviously meant for them. Hu Yuni, Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, and Madame Qin were also overjoyed. The incense cult and Between the Clouds and the Water both had methods to enter the path of immortality through martial arts. Beidou School must have some methods as well. Thank you, sect leader Zhang. Everyone bowed. Don't be in such a hurry to thank me. I's help isn't without conditions. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, the things you need to raise your cultivation to the path of immortality must be provided by your Misty School. Also, the techniques and pills used by the 3 disciples must also be provided by your Misty School. This. Hu Yuni and Li Jian were at a loss for words. They didn't know that 3 things were needed for 3 disciples to enter the path of immortality, so they could only turn to look at Zhang Xiaohu. Zhang Xiaohu nodded and said, these conditions, my Misty School agrees. After all, these things need a lot of money, so there's no reason for Beidou School to pay for my Misty School. Since sect leader Zhang agrees, then it's easy to handle. Zhang Xiaohua clapped her hands and smiled. Zhang Xiaohu glared at him but didn't say anything. Seeing that the 2 factions had reached an agreement, Yen was also happy. She asked, then what's the 3rd suggestion, Elder Hu? Oh, this 3rd suggestion isn't anything special. It's just an addition to the first 2 suggestions. It's the icing on the cake. Hu Yuni thought for a moment and said, if sect leader Zhang doesn't have any objections to the first two suggestions, my Misty School and Beidou School would like to further form an alliance. Under the premise of complementing each other, we can advance and retreat together in the Jianghu, going through thick and thin together. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he couldn't help but frown. He had previously told Zhang Xiaohu about this relationship, hoping that Beidou School and Misty School could become close brothers, just like he and his second brother. However, he had only said it casually back then. Moreover, Beidou School hadn't been established yet, so it was easy for him to say it without thinking about the consequences of his words. Now that he heard Hu Yuni and O Yan's negotiation, Zhang Xiaohua realized that his previous thoughts might have been too simple. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's frown, O Yan couldn't make a decision. She thought for a moment and said, Elder Hu, can you elaborate further? Hu Yuni also said seriously, actually, this third suggestion is something we suddenly thought of before we came. Since our Misty School's sect leader Zhang and your sect's sect leader Zhang are blood brothers, we dare to make this suggestion. I can't explain it in detail, but if our Misty School is in danger of being wiped out, I hope that your sect's sect leader will lend us a helping hand. Our Misty School will also take responsibility for all of your sect's trivial matters in the Jianghu. When O Yan heard this, she frowned. This exchange seemed to be extremely disproportionate. The Misty School had only helped Beidou School with a simple matter, but in exchange, they had asked for Beidou School's help when their own sect was about to be wiped out. This really didn't make sense. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Chidian.com. Chapter 1208. Seeing O Yan's hesitation, Hu Yuni smiled and said, actually, Beidou School seems to be at a disadvantage, but if you think about it carefully, under the leadership of sect leader Zhang, our Misty School's strength has increased greatly. Other than the Dalan Temple, the Incense Sect, the Righteous Alliance and the Tenryu Sect, no other sect has dared to provoke us. We won't be facing such a crisis for many years, but your sect can come to our Misty School at any time. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Elder Hu is right. Although our Beidou School has been established, our strength is limited. Elder Hu must have seen the future of our Beidou School and thought of this alliance. Moreover, in the Jianghu today, after the Battle of Yaoshan Immortal Abode, the strength of the various sects has been greatly affected. Not to mention the small sects, among the large sects, the Righteous Alliance has lost the strength to compete with the Misty School. If we talk about sect annihilation, I'm afraid the Misty School won't be in the same situation as before. Then, Zhang Xiaohua looked at Zhang Xiaohu and said, as long as my second brother is the sect leader of the Misty School, I may not care about the ordinary crisis of the Misty School, but when it comes to sect annihilation, how can I not take action? Sect leader Zhang is right. This old man knows, but life is limited. As long as sect leader Zhang is in charge of Yaoshan Immortal Abode, you can say this, but what about the future? My Misty School has been around for tens of thousands of years, and the Beidou School has been around for at least tens of thousands of years. The future is not something we can think of. This old man is doing this because I want the Misty School and the Beidou School to be in harmony for generations, and to be in alliance forever. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and shook her head. Harmony for generations, an alliance forever, this is too difficult. Your Misty School's founder, Yang Haoya, and the Incense Sect's founder, Yu Mingxin, their relationship is extraordinary. Even the Shindao Sect's founder, Wan Wuxin, came from the same place as those two founders. Their relationship is needless to say, their thoughts back then weren't they the same as yours? But what happened to the Shindao Sect? What happened to your Misty School? Anyone in the Jianghu who has some sort of inheritance knows this very well. Elder Hu, do you think that we can do better than them? Sect leader Zhang is right. Actually, when this old man came, I also thought about a lot of things. But everything depends on one's effort. If this old man doesn't do it now, in a few years, or even 10 years, I won't have the chance to do it again. If we just rely on the relationship between the two sect leaders, I'm afraid it won't be very reliable. For both the Beidou school and the Misty school, this is extremely unrealistic. Hu Yuni said sincerely, so, this old man knows that this matter is a bit ridiculous and unrealistic. But, for my Misty school, this old man is willing to do this stupid thing. No matter what the relationship between the Misty school and the Beidou school is in the future, this old man has tried his best. This old man has no regrets. Good. Hu Yuni's words made Zhang Xiaohua's blood boil. She stood up and said, Elder Hu, this old man has tried his best. This old man has no regrets sounds very pleasing to my ears. Although my Beidou school's starting point is very high, but, after all, it's congenitally deficient and has a weak foundation. These are exactly what the Misty school has. If my sect and your sect can learn from each other's strengths to make up for our weaknesses, we'll be able to complement each other. Oh Yin, this matter is settled. Discuss it with Elder Hu later and see what to do. Yes, senior sect leader. Oh Yen was extremely happy when she heard this. Also, as for the new disciples, you'll see how to recruit them and how to operate them. These things should be handled by Hall Master Shui, right? You'll have to communicate with him. Yes, I won't let the two sect leaders down. Shui Qing bowed and said. Hu Yuni's face was flushed. He said somewhat embarrassedly, Sect leader Zhang, this old man has a small request. Zhang Xiaohua said curiously, Elder Hu, please speak. That, how is Shui Tiantian now? Has been by my side and has always been guided by me. Now that he suddenly left, I'm a little worried. Hee, I thought it was something big. Zhang Xiaohua laughed and waved her hand. A ray of light flashed, and Shui Tiantian appeared in front of everyone sitting cross-legged. Tiantian, yes, master. Shui Tiantian opened his eyes and was stunned when he saw everyone from the Misty school. However, he still bowed to Zhang Xiaohua and said, May I know why master has called this disciple over? Misty school's elder who missed you and wanted to come and see you. Grandmaster? Shui Tiantian turned around and looked at Elder Hu's familiar face. His eyes were wet as he bowed and said, Greetings, Elder Hu. Good child, get up, get up. Hu Yuni's eyes were also red. He helped Shui Tiantian up and asked, Tin, are you all right? Reporting, Grandmaster, this disciple is fine. Shui Tiantian finally couldn't help but call out, Grandmaster. Then he felt that it was inappropriate and turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was only smiling and didn't mind, he was relieved. As long as you're fine. You don't have to be too greedy for cultivation. You're still young. Slowly build your foundation. Don't be like before. Keep the hatred in your heart, Grandmaster. Shui Tiantian couldn't help but cry. He knelt down and kowtowed. Grandmaster, this disciple is really sorry. You treat this disciple like family. But this disciple is unscrupulous and fed you poison. This disciple deserves to die. Sigh, don't mention the past anymore. Hu Yuni sighed. This isn't your fault. It's all Shui Yupeng's fault. He was blinded by greed and used you as a tool. What crime have you committed? But he's still this disciple's father. This disciple thinks about it day and night. I don't have the face to see Grandmaster again. Actually, thinking about it again, Shui Yupeng had no choice but to do this for your safety. This old man, sigh, forget it. He's already gone. My poison and serious injuries have been cured by your master. You don't have to blame yourself too much. This old man has no son and has always treated you like a grandson. As long as you're doing well in Beidou school, this old man is happier than anything else. Speaking of which, during the years when Hu Yuni led the Misty School's disciples to exile, he had been carefully cultivating Shui Tiantian, treating him as the future hope of the Misty School. After a long time, he naturally developed feelings for him. Although Shui Yupeng's scheme was involved in the end, it was impossible for Hu Yuni to resent Shui Tiantian. This disciple knows. This disciple is very happy in Beidou school. Shui Tiantian said with tears on his face. Suddenly, as if he had something fun to share with the adults, Shui Tiantian couldn't hold back the joy on his face. He looked at Hu Yuni and said, "Grandmaster, this disciple has something to tell you." Seeing how Shui Tiantian seemed to be hiding an excellent toy and wanted to show it to Hu Yuni in hopes of receiving his praise, Hu Yuni's heart softened. He recalled how Shui Tiantian would always show off to him when he was young before he mastered a move. Hu Yuni's tone became even more benevolent. "What's wrong? Tim, what kind of martial art did you master?" "Grandmaster?" Shui Tiantian was just about to say something when he thought of something. He quickly turned around and looked at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know and only nodded slightly to express her agreement. Only then did Shui Tiantian turn around and say with a smile, "When this disciple was following Grandmaster, Grandmaster always said, if this disciple mastered martial arts in the future, I would be able to inherit the Misty School's immortal path and step onto the immortal path. You also said that your greatest wish was to let this disciple step onto the immortal path, to revitalize the Misty School." "Sai, that's right. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have almost fought with sect leader Zhang and let the Righteous Alliance take advantage of me for nothing." Hu Yuni sighed and said, "At that time my body was already on the verge of death. If I didn't make arrangements for you, my Misty School would never be able to rise again. However, fortunately, sect leader Zhang is the pillar of my Misty School. This old man has long been relieved." "He, Grandmaster, this disciple has already stepped onto the immortal path a few days ago," Shui Tiantian said with a smile. "Ah?" Hu Yuni was stunned and immediately became ecstatic. "Tiantian, you're also a person of the immortal path?" "Yes, Grandmaster, this disciple is stupid. I even entered the immortal path after senior brother Ji." "It's nothing," Shui Tiantian said shyly. "Ji Xiaohua?" Hu Yuni was even more shocked. He also stepped onto the immortal path? However, he immediately felt that it was inappropriate and immediately cupped his hands at Zhang Xiaohua. "Sect leader Zhang, this old man's tone is a little reckless. I've seen Xiaohua before. He doesn't have any foundation in martial arts at all. That's why I'm so surprised." It's fine, it's fine," Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. "Sect leader Zhang, how many of your disciples have yet to step onto the immortal path?" Li Jian suppressed his surprise and couldn't help but probe. In my Beidou school, other than martial nephew Zhang Byron who's still young, the other 6 disciples have already reached the immortal path," Nie Qinyu said proudly. Everyone in the Misty School, including Zhang Xiaohu, looked at each other. It had only been a month since the Beidou School was established, and it had already cultivated 6 disciples of the immortal path. And these disciples were all known by the Misty School. No wonder, they easily agreed to cultivate 3 disciples of the immortal path for the Misty School every year. "It's so easy for the Beidou School. Xiao, you're too unkind," Zhang Xiaohu said with a frown. "Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Chidian.com." Chapter 1209. Second brother, this is a matter between Beidou School and Misty School, not a private matter between you and me, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Zhang Xiaohu thought for a moment and nodded. Master Zhang is right. That's exactly what we should do. Since Master Zhang approves, it's easy to do. Let Nie Qinyu and O Yen communicate with you about these things. We're all family. Just do what we've been doing for the past decades and let the disciples worry about the future. Zhang Xiaohua touched her chin and said, "By the way, it's almost time. Are Elder Li and others going to the secluded plain?" Zhang Xiaohu shook his head and said, "Elder Li has just recovered from his injury and his internal strength has not fully recovered. This time, he just came to talk about cooperation with Beidou School. He definitely can't go to the secluded plain." Then he pointed to Aunt Qin and Xue Qing and said, "Hall Master Qin and Hall Master Xue also came to talk about things. They won't go." "Well, in this case, Elder Li, are you going back now or, Master Zhang, I haven't been to Holy Realm Dweller's Mansion yet. How about I stay here for a few more days? Hu Yuni said with a smile. Of course, Tian Tian also misses you very much. You can go back with my second brother after the secluded plain. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, and I'll have to trouble Hall Master Shui and Hall Master Qin with many things. Let's strike while the iron is hot and draw up a charter for future operations. Everyone in Misty School was overjoyed. The earlier they formed an alliance with Beidou School, the earlier the Misty School could improve their strength, and the earlier they could set foot on the path of immortality. Well, second brother, shall we go now? Zhang Xiaohua got up and asked. Let's go. Chang'e and Qin Chen won't go. It's only a day's work in the secluded site. I'll see my parents when I come back. Zhang Xiaohu nodded and said, by the way, Xiaohua, you'd better dress up like a senior who had a relationship with my Misty School. The Fragrance Cult and the Dalan Temple both have immortal masters. If my Misty School doesn't have any, I'm afraid there will be some twists and turns in the secret plane. Zhang Xiaohua nodded. In any case, they all know that there is such an expert of the immortal Tao. As he spoke, Zhang Xiaohua waved his hand. Aunt Qin, Shui Qing, and the others disappeared and were sent to the side of the lake. Then he sent Zhang Xiaohu and the others to the foot of Yao Mountain and said, wait here for a while. I will wash up and dress up now. Sure enough, within a few minutes, a handsome Taoist pan and with a moderate figure appeared in front of Zhang Xiaohu and the others. Li Jian and the others had only heard about it from Zhang Xiaohu, but they had never seen him. At this time, they only felt that it was incredible. Just now, he was Zhang Xiaohua, but in a moment, he became a completely different person. Zhang Xiaohu seemed to be used to it. He glanced at him and said, Taoist Pan, this place is not far from the secluded site. We still need to cover our tracks. I'm not familiar with this road. Deputy Gang Leader Wen and Deputy Gang Leader Lu have been there before. Please lead the way. What do you think? Well, I'll listen to Gang Leader Zhang's instructions. Zhang Xiaohua whispered. Then, Zhang Xiaohua took out a few jade talismans and handed them to everyone. He smiled and said, I have a feeling that this secluded site may not be safe, and there may be something that I can't take care of. This is the jade talisman of the way of immortality. I just learned it recently. It's quite magical to use. Take it. Take them. If you encounter any danger, just crush them. If nothing unexpected happens, they should be able to protect you for 2 hours. Everyone took it and was stunned. The jade talisman looked like a rabbit. Zhang Xiaohua's face was burning. He whispered, Haze, this jade talisman is not very successful. It's perfect, it should look like a rabbit. Is it really a rabbit? Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, I thought I was wrong. Then, he carefully put the jade talisman into his arms and said, a rabbit is not bad. It's better than an ingot. Second brother, Zhang Xiaohua shouted. The others were puzzled, but seeing Zhang Xiaohu's treasured look, they also carefully put away the jade talisman. Let's go. Zhang Xiaohu ignored Zhang Xiaohua and looked around. He waved his hand and said, Vice Gang Leader Wen, please lead the way. At this time, the sky was getting dark and the evening mist was heavy. Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, Wen Wenhai, Lu Yueming and Zhang Xiaohu used their qing gong to hide their presence and went to Five Claw Peak. Zhang Xiaohua hid her figure and followed Zhang Xiaohu's back. The night had already fallen, and the round moon was gradually moving towards the sky. Tonight was a clear and sunny day. Under the water-like moonlight, the Five Claw Peak pierced straight into the night sky. A chilly wind blew past, blowing the withered grass and yellow leaves into the air. A few afterimages flashed past, and then their silhouettes appeared in the moonlight. Below the Thumb Peak, on a large piece of flat land, Zhang Xiaohu and the others stopped next to a crouching ox rock. Reporting to sect leader Zhang, it's here. Last time, lay practitioner Yanming said it was next to this crouching ox rock. Looking at the crouching ox rock, which was exactly the same as it was a few years ago, when Wenhai couldn't help but feel emotional. He pointed at the rock and said to Zhang Xiaohu, Good. Zhang Xiaohu looked at the sky and asked, It's already past 9, where are the people from the Dalan Temple and Incense Cult? Before he finished speaking, Zhang Xiaohua whispered something to him. Oh, Understood. Zhang Xiaohu nodded slightly, looked around, and jumped onto the crouching ox rock. He sat down cross-legged, as if he was regulating his qi circulation. Li Jian and the others were in a protective position, surrounding the crouching ox rock. After half an hour, a slight rustling sound came from the east. When Zhang Xiaohu opened his eyes, he saw several Dalan temple monks in monk robes had quietly appeared not far from the crouching ox rock. Under the moonlight, they were Master Chang Xing, Great Master Chang Gung, Master Chang Xing, and 3 skinny monks. Zhang Xiaohu had already received information that these 3 skinny monks were Master Tiangang, Master Yuan Dao, and Master Yuan Ming. He immediately felt deep veneration for them. He jumped up from the crouching ox rock and went forward to salute them. Zhang Xiaohu from the Misty School greets Master Chang Sheng and all the other masters. Master Chang Sheng and the others floated in the air and arrived at the scene. When they used their divine senses, they noticed Zhang Xiaohua standing not far behind Zhang Xiaohu. When they saw Zhang Xiaohu coming over to salute them, only Master Chang Sheng put his palms together and smiled. Sect leader Zhang, you're early. I wouldn't dare. I'm a junior in Jianghu. Since I've been summoned by my seniors, of course I have to wait early. Zhang Xiaohu said respectfully. Although the Dalan Temple was one of the participants in destroying the Misty School that day, Zhang Xiaohu did not directly confront the Dalan Temple. There were not many monks that day, and Master Chang Sheng had a good reputation in Jianghu. He did not allow Zhang Xiaohu to be disrespectful. Amitabha, Master Chang Sheng chanted the name of Buddha. He then raised his head and said, "How should I address all of you? Why haven't I seen you before? My name is Panin. I've been cultivating in seclusion. I'm a nameless itinerant cultivator. It's normal that the elders don't know because I have an old relationship with the seniors of the Misty School. I also received some favors from the seniors of the Misty School. By chance, I found out that the Misty School was in trouble. That's why I lent a helping hand. However, I don't care about worldly affairs. The affairs of Jianghu are intertwined with gratitude and grudges. It's hard to say who's right and who's wrong. Your grudges? I don't care. Fellow Taoist, you're very generous. Thousands of people from the Misty School, all of them recovered their martial arts. Even I feel ashamed of my inferiority. How can I be a nameless itinerant cultivator? However, I don't know if the Misty School has passed down any immortal cultivation techniques for generations. Master Tiangang said in a low voice. Hee, Master Tiangang's name is well known throughout the world. I've admired you for a long time. However, I don't like fighting and lack the desire to win. But I'm afraid we're not fated to meet. Just as they were talking, another voice sounded. Master Panin, you live up to your name. I've admired you for a long time. Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and saw a group of people slowly approaching from the mountain path not far away. They were the Misty School's disciples who had arrived earlier. Looking at Nun Jingyi, who was speaking, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "You're just a piece of trash. How can you live up to your name?" Nun eyes admiration, but I can't accept it. While they were talking, the Misty School's disciples had arrived. They were Nun Jingyi, Nun Shuqing, Nun Shuezhen, Peacock, Qinchin, and Yun. Fellow Taoist, your name has spread throughout Jianghu before the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. I don't know how many people admire you, but I wonder, why didn't you come to the fight for the Immortal Mansion? If you did, I'm afraid that the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion wouldn't belong to Beta School anymore. The appearance of the Immortal Mansion can only be obtained by the virtuous. I have never dared to consider myself virtuous, and I'm used to cultivating in a quiet place. As for the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, it's better to keep it as bait for others. Hearing this, Master Tiangang, Nun Shuqing, and the others' faces changed slightly. The Yaoshan Immortal Mansion wasn't just their bait, it was the bait for the entire Jianghu. All the sects in Jianghu were defeated at Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. If there was any sect that benefited, other than the Beidu School, it would be the Misty School that didn't participate in the fight for the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion at all. Nun Jingyi stood not far away, coldly looking at Zhang Xiaohu and calmly said, "Sect leader Zhang, It's only been a few months since we parted at Mo Sungong. Are you all? Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohu smiled, but didn't go forward. He cupped his hands and saluted. Ever since I left Lingering Fragrance Peak, I've been very well. Thank you for your concern, Tun. As for the grudge between the Misty School and the Incense Cult, I don't think I need to say anything. I've already told the inner sect disciple you sent, so there's no need for me to repeat myself. Hee, sect leader Zhang's methods are good. Even I admire you greatly. In addition, this sect leader Pan in behind you is actually playing with the incense cult in the palm of his hand. I truly admire you. Nanjing, do you think my Misty School's torment is light? Lu Qingyang shouted, if it weren't for my sect leader Zhang's wisdom and courage, my Misty School would be. Please cast a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a collection, and a tip. Chapter 12:10. Cough cough. Zhang Xiaohu coughed softly, and Lu Qingyang's voice immediately softened. Hee, I've already told you about the Misty School at Lingering Fragrance Peak. The reason behind it isn't as simple as you think. If you're talking about torment, there are also people like Master Longevity from the Dalan Temple. You can ask them too. Sect leader Zhang, I feel guilty about what happened in the past. Everything was used by others. I'm sure sect leader Zhang already knows about it, but I don't want to explain. Master Longevity smiled bitterly. Hee, all right, the mastermind from back then is here. Nanjing said softly. Sure enough, Zhang Xiaohu had already sensed something. From the side of the Crouching Ox Rock, in the forest to the south, a few figures were also flying over with lightness skills. It was Alliance leader Zhang San from the Alliance of Righteous Sects. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Li Jian and the others narrowed their eyes when they saw the familiar figures. Lu Qingyang's fists were already clenched. Cough cough. Master Longevity coughed and said softly, Sect leader Zhang, today is a big day for the 4 sections. Don't delay the great cause of the Misty School because of some small matter. Of course. Our ethereal sect has always prioritized the big picture. How can we create more trouble at this time? Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohu looked at Nanjing and Master Longevity and said with a smile. All right, sect leader Zhang, how are Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng? How are my thousands of Wuming Hall disciples? This time, when our inner disciples went over, they actually avoided meeting them. I'm surprised. Nanjing suddenly asked. Nan, you're really forgetful. Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng admire our Misty School's legacy and specially joined our Misty School. They've always relied on the inner disciples in spreading fragrance cult. When they came to our Misty School, they became the masters. Right now, they're carefree on Misty Peak. How can they have the time to care about you? Zhang Xiaohu had already thought of a countermeasure. When she heard this, Nanjing almost exploded in anger. Nanjing Yi's voice grew louder. Abbess, today is a big day for the 4 sections. Don't delay the great cause of the incense cult because of some small matter. Abbess, please conduct yourself with dignity. Zhang Xiaohu looked at Abbess Jingyi and said with a smile. Nanjing Yi's lips trembled. Cough cough. When Master Longevity saw this, he quickly coughed a few times. He turned to Alliance leader Zhang San and said, Alliance leader Zhang San, why, are you late? Sigh, Master. Alliance Master Zhang San looked at the 5 inner force experts beside him and smiled bitterly. Ever since we parted ways at Yaoshan Mountain, our alliance has been hiding nearby. Bai Yanqiu from between the clouds and the water seems to have sensed our presence. He has been searching for our whereabouts all this time. If it was before, our alliance might not have been afraid. But now, our alliance did not bring enough manpower, and there are also immortal experts between the clouds and the water. Our alliance can only endure. Between the clouds and the water, actually sense something? Master Longevity was slightly stunned. He immediately released his divine sense and looked for a while. He then turned to Master Tiangang and asked, Master, is there anything strange around here? Master Tiangang shook his head slightly. Master Longevity let out a sigh of relief. He knew that Alliance leader Zhang San did not have an immortal divine sense. If he was being followed, he might not know. Master Tiangong's divine sense was the strongest among all of them. If he did not sense anything, then it must be nothing. All right, the people of our 4 sects have gathered. Let's go to the secret plane according to our original agreement. Master Longevity waved his hand and said, no matter what grudges there were between our 4 sects, before we come out of the secret plane, there must be no friction. Everyone knows that Beidou School has taken the initiative in the Yaoshan Immortal Abode. This secret plane is the key to the revival of our 4 sections. If anyone messes up this important matter, the other 3 sects will join forces to punish them. Alliance leader Zhang San stood not far from Zhang Xiaohu. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but after hearing Master Longevity's words, he swallowed his words. Let's go. Master Longevity waved his sleeves and took the lead. Master Tiangang and the others also floated in the air and followed. Then the incense cult followed. Alliance leader Zhang San was about to move when he heard Zhang Xiaohu say in a low voice, does the martial arts sect have to walk before the immortal path? As he spoke, he leaped up and used the ethereal steps, which was comparable to the levitation technique. He lightly brought Li Jian and the others with him. The Alliance Master Zhang San was furious. Just as he was about to regain some of his dignity, he felt a frosty gaze sweep past Zhang Xiaohu. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's handsome face, he jumped. Taoist Pan? Alliance leader Zhang San almost groaned. Zhang Xiaohua snorted coldly and used the levitation technique. Her body floated in the air and followed behind Lu Yueming, heading towards the direction of the ring finger of 5 Claws Peak. This Alliance leader Zhang San was a little dumbfounded. Looking at their backs, he couldn't help but grit his teeth and touch his chest a few times. Then he waved his hand and said in a low voice, let's go. Everyone's qigong was excellent and they even had the levitation technique. In less than half an hour, they arrived at the dense forest in the middle of the ring finger peak. The dark and silent forest was like a monster that had not moved since ancient times. It was lying there quietly. Even the brilliance of snow could not cover the forest. Zhang Xiaohua used her divine sense to scan the forest. She felt that the forest was exactly the same as when she first came. There was nothing special about it. However, when her divine sense swept past every jujube tree, a trace of uneasiness was transmitted from her divine sense to her heart. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She thought of the indescribable throbbing in her heart before the Misty School's visit. She couldn't help but be shocked. She thought to herself, could it be that tonight's trip is a great omen? The more she thought about it, the more mysterious the jujube forest became in her eyes. Faction leader Zhang, this jujube forest? I'm afraid there's something strange about it. Zhang Xiaohua said in a low voice. With eyes cultivation, it's difficult to see the truth of this place, if it's possible. Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to finish, Master Changxing said in a low voice, everyone, this place is an ancient divine array. If you don't have the map that leads to the array, no matter what your cultivation is, as long as you enter the forest, you'll definitely die. There are records of this place in the ancient books of the Dalan Temple. It's also very clear that you should never take the risk to enter. You're right, Master Changxing. Our incense cult also has similar records. Moreover, this sheepskin scroll has been lost tens of thousands of years ago, so we've all put this forest at the back of our minds. Now that the map has reappeared, it's time for our 4 schools of immortal Dao to revive. Nanjing nodded. All right, according to the ancient books, this forest array can only be opened under the morning sun on the 15th day of the first lunar month. At any other time, it's a dead array. Therefore, we'll have to wait here until tomorrow morning to enter the array. Master Changxing continued, by the way, someone from the Misty School entered the array a few years ago. Is this old monk's words true? Reporting to Master Changxing, our vice faction leader Wen Wenhai entered this array a few years ago. It's exactly as you said. Zhang Xiaohu looked at Wen Wenhai and stepped forward. That's good. Since someone from the Misty School has entered, tomorrow morning, Let's invite the Misty School to be the first to enter. What do you all think? Everyone hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Well, since someone from the Misty School has entered, I wonder if you can tell us in detail about the layout of the secret plane? Master Changxing asked with a smile. Master, after we enter, if there are treasures, how should we distribute them? We haven't finished discussing these matters, yet you want the Misty School to provide information. I'm afraid it's not appropriate, Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. Master Changxing was stunned. Nanjing Yi said apologetically, since faction leader Zhang didn't want to see us, we could only send our inner disciples to pass the message. We haven't told faction leader Zhang the specific details yet. Yes, Master Changxing nodded slightly and said, according to the ancient books, the secret plane is quite large. Some places have their own universe. It's far from the size of the mountain we see now. Therefore, when the 4 sects enter, we'll divide whatever we see equally. If we can't divide it equally, the sect that wants to get the remaining items will have to compensate the other 3 sections. As for the items within the restriction, it'll depend on each sect's actions. Whoever has the ability to take more will take it based on their ability. After he finished speaking, he said to Zhang Xiaohu, Faction leader Zhang, what do you think of this method? Zhang Xiaohu was speechless. He looked at Master Changxing, Great Master Changgung, and Master Changxing behind him. Well, there were also 3 skinny and shriveled masters. He felt bitter in his mouth. Was there a need to say more? The inside was full of immortal Tao restrictions. The Dalan Temple had come prepared. Of course, they would take the lead. However, thinking about the unpredictable Zhang Xiaohua, Zhang Xiaohu cupped his hands and said, of course, the secret plane? We have to rely on our own strength to fight for treasures. If we walk behind others, we'll only be blind. Then he glanced sideways at Alliance leader Zhang San. At this time, Alliance leader Zhang San had already calmed down, as if he hadn't heard anything. He raised his head to look at the dense forest under the moonlight, his eyes full of admiration. Well, would Vice Faction Leader Wen please explain a little? Master Changxing said with a smile. Yes, please wait a moment. Zhang Xiaohu turned his head and gave Wen Wenhai a look. Thus, when Wenhai whispered about the last time they entered the dense forest. The process wasn't very detailed, and the objects inside were also vague. What? Is there only such a small place? Master Changxing frowned. Are there only those old medicinal herbs inside? Nanjing Yi was also shocked. Speaking of medicinal herbs, there were many in Yulon Grand Canyon. Her incense cult didn't need to mess around here. Reporting to the 2 seniors, this is indeed what this disciple saw back then. As for any restrictions, formations, or other immortal Tao methods, this disciple doesn't know. I reckon that Yenming Jusher back then might not know either. When Wenhai said with a wry smile. Well, that's indeed true. Master Changxing and Nanjing Yi both nodded. After a while, Master Changxing asked apologetically, Faction leader Zhang, this old monk has overstepped. I wonder, what did faction leader O obtain in this secret plane back then? Chapter 12:11. You destroyed the Tan family, Yenming Villa, and Wan Jianfeng? What? You don't know anything. Lu Qingyang coldly snorted. What? Jianghu is filled with grudges and vengeance. If you don't have strength, don't be blinded by greed and go looking for treasures. Otherwise, you'll only end up with your family destroyed. Nanjing Yi also coldly snorted. Actually, I just want to confirm whether or not this jungle is worth the risk. Master Changxing pulled a long face and asked. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, actually, it's nothing. It's just a few qi-generating pills and a few bone-strengthening pills. In addition to this, your school seems to have another jade box. Nanjing Yi laughed. Zhang Xiaohu calmly said, inside that jade box is a sword manual. My Misty School had already arranged for the young Eagle Hall disciples to practice it before Boss O passed away. Nanjing Yi nodded slightly. It seemed that this sword manual, she knew about it. Yes, O Ping, and the other's explosive increase in internal strength, should be the effect of this qi-generating pill. Master Chang Sheng also nodded. Since this kind of pill is in the small house, there might be more hidden in the array. That's right, Vice Boss. When in the small house, what else is there? Nun Jingyi asked again. This. When Wenhai thought for a moment, then looked at Zhang Xiaohu and said, there's nothing in the house. Apart from some incense burners, a jade table, a square table and 3 chairs, there's nothing else. At this point, when Wenhai seemed to have thought of something and said excitedly, that's right, on the wall on the right, there are 3 portraits hanging. It's just that they're too old to be seen clearly. Portraits? Not only was Nun Jingyi surprised, but Zhang Xiaohua, who was standing far behind them, was also surprised. Who are the people in the portraits? Nun Jingyi asked nervously. This. One seems to be a swordsman with a saber, another seems to be a scholar with a folding fan, and the last seems to be a masked woman. When Wenhai thought for a moment and said, is the woman holding something in her hand? Nun Shuqing asked. Oh, it seems, it's a long whip. Nun Jingyi and Nun Shuqing's faces were filled with joy. Seeing Wenhai's confusion, they couldn't help but sneer. That scholar with the folding fan is your Misty School's founder, Yang Haoya. You don't even know how to kowtow in front of him. This is really blasphemy against your founder. Me? When Wenhai's expression changed. But, thinking that it was impossible for the other party to lie to him, he couldn't help but feel ashamed. Zhang Xiaohu laughed and said, our Misty School's immortal inheritance has been lost for a long time. It's normal that deputy faction leader Wen has not seen the portrait of founding Master Yang. Could it be that all the inner disciples of your school have seen the portrait of founding Master Yu? Ancestral Master Moon? Nun Jingyi was slightly stunned. She looked at Zhang Xiaohu in a different light. You actually know the name of the founder of the incense cult? Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said nothing. All right, since we know that there's a portrait of the founder of the immortal path in the secret land, then there must be something extremely important inside. We have a reason to take the risk and enter. Master Changsheng laughed and looked around. He walked to the north side of the forest and sat down cross-legged. The other masters also sat down next to him. Nun Jingyi saw this and smiled. She led Peacock and the others to the opposite side of the Dalan temple and sat down. When she was seated, she didn't forget to say in a low voice, Faction leader Zhang, all the inner disciples of the incense cult have seen the portrait of founding Master Yu. Oh? Zhang Xiaohu was taken aback. Then, he remembered what Zhang Xiaohua said about the manor beside the carefree lake. I'm impressed. Zhang Xiaohu cupped his hands and led Li Jian and the others to form a triangle with the other 2 factions. Faction leader Zhang San couldn't get a word in edgewise. He waited for the 3 factions to sit down before finding a place to lead his disciples. However, when he saw Zhang Xiaohu not far away, he sighed and ordered his disciples to go first. He then walked to the side of the Misty School's disciples. What are you doing here? Lu Qingyang asked angrily. This humble one has something important to discuss with faction leader Zhang. Faction leader Zhang San looked at Zhang Xiaohu behind Lu Qingyang and whispered. There's nothing to discuss. The Misty School and the Righteous Alliance are mortal enemies. Lu Qingyang scolded. Hee, there's no such thing as an eternal enemy in this Jianghu. How can there be an eternal ally? Faction leader Zhang San chuckled and said, this humble one is just proposing a deal to faction leader Zhang. If faction leader Zhang doesn't agree, just listen. There's no need to take it seriously. Sigh. Zhang Xiaohu stood up and cupped his hands. Faction leader Zhang, there's really nothing to discuss between our 2 factions. If it weren't for the importance of this forest, we wouldn't have come at all. Hee, since faction leader Zhang knows the importance of this forest, what if this humble one uses the things in the forest to make a deal with your faction? Faction leader Zhang San smiled. Zhang Xiaohu pretended to be surprised and said curiously, the things in the forest are extremely important. Could it be that the Righteous Alliance has something more important than these things? If faction leader Zhang is interested, this humble one will say it. Otherwise, this humble one will turn back. Faction leader Zhang, please speak. Hee, this lord really wants to hear it. Zhang Xiaohu smiled. Well, it's like this. The things in the secret plane, the Righteous Alliance owns 25% of them. If faction leader Zhang agrees to this humble one's deal, this humble one will give faction leader Zhang 10% of them. What do you think? Seeing that faction leader Zhang San was somewhat reluctant, Zhang Xiaohu's eyes narrowed and he asked curiously, what do you need this lord to do? It's very simple. This humble one wants faction leader Zhang to return the thousands of disciples of the Righteous Alliance. What do you think? Bah! Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohu to speak, Lu Qingyang spat out thick phlegm and scolded, those are thousands of disciples. They're already the disciples of the Misty School's Martial Arts Hall and Great Martial Arts Hall. You just touched your lips and you want me to return them to you? Moreover, we still don't know what's in the secret plane. How can those things be compared to these disciples? That's right, faction leader Zhang. You see, this lord hasn't even opened his mouth and Elder Lu has already seen that this deal is unfair. What else do we have to talk about? Zhang Xiaohu smiled. Faction leader Zhang San was slightly anxious and said in a low voice, Faction leader Zhang, at first glance, this deal is indeed inappropriate. But think about it again. Although my thousands of disciples have already become the disciples of your two halls, but can you be at ease with them? Don't you still have to take out a lot of people to supervise them? Moreover, you still don't feel at ease letting them go. Rather than feeling this uncomfortable, it's better to directly let them go and return them to this humble one. Wouldn't it be better to obtain the treasures in this secret plane? Seeing Zhang Xiaohu's face reveal a strange smile, he continued, Moreover, although the number of these thousands of disciples is large, they're not of one mind. They can't be compared to the disciples cultivated by your Misty School. If you obtain some treasures in the secret plane, such as the qi-generating pill that you just spoke of, then all of a sudden, you can cultivate your trusted disciples into top-notch experts. Wouldn't that be much more convenient than using these thousands of disciples? As Elder Lu said just now, who knows how many treasures there are in this secret plane? Look at the posture of the Dalan Temple and then look at the posture of the Cult of Incense. Faction leader Zhang, don't you think that there's a huge secret in this secret plane? If our two factions don't work together, then wouldn't we be eaten up by the other two factions until nothing is left? Of course, this humble one can't guarantee that there are enough treasures inside that can be compared to the thousands of disciples. However, for the thousands of useless disciples, I think that faction leader Zhang should take this risk. Zhang Xiaohu revealed a thoughtful expression. Seeing this situation, Alliance leader Zhang San added fuel to the fire. Faction leader Zhang, this is a ladder that our alliance is handing to your noble faction. We know that your Misty School's strength has increased greatly, and our Righteous Alliance has suffered heavy losses. However, if our Righteous Alliance stacks everything on a single throw and attacks your Misty School with all our strength, do you think those thousands of disciples you've recruited will listen to you or to our alliance? This. Zhang Xiaohu pretended to panic. Of course, this is just our alliance's assumption. If we really do this, our Righteous Alliance will suffer heavy losses. I'm afraid that we won't be far from being destroyed. This isn't something that our alliance wants to see. Presumably, faction leader Zhang won't do this and let the Dalan Temple and the Cult of Incense reap the benefits. Alliance leader Zhang San laughed. 20%. Zhang Xiaohu seemed to understand Alliance leader Zhang San's meaning. He also knew that Alliance leader Zhang San would fight to the death, so he called out decisively. Alliance leader Zhang San was stunned, then laughed softly. Faction leader Zhang is indeed a smart person. No wonder even Abbess Jingyi had to suffer at your hands. However, our Righteous Alliance only has 25% in total. I don't think there's any hope for those formations and restrictions, so 20% is really too much. Alliance leader Zhang San, these are thousands of disciples. If it were a few hundred, I would have agreed long ago. Why would I waste my breath here? If it were a few hundred, our alliance wouldn't have come here and lowered our face to make this deal with you. Forget it, who told our alliance to be in the wrong first? 15% is our bottom line. If you don't, we'll turn around right now. Alliance leader Zhang San turned around and was about to leave. Don't. Zhang Xiaohu pulled Alliance leader Zhang San back and laughed. 15% it is. To be honest, these thousands of disciples are troublesome in my misty school. If the righteous alliance takes them back, I'll be more than happy. All right, faction leader Zhang San is straightforward. Let's clap our hands and make an oath. Alliance leader Zhang San raised his right hand. Zhang Xiaohu also raised his right hand. Just as they were about to clap hands, Li Jian reminded them, faction leader Zhang San, you must consider this carefully. Zhang Xiaohu was stunned. Alliance leader Zhang San raised his hand, and their palms collided. Alliance leader Zhang San retracted his right hand and cupped his hands. Once this matter is settled, our alliance will send a disciple to receive them. I hope faction leader Zhang San won't go back on his words. You. Zhang Xiaohu retracted his right hand, and a look of regret appeared on his face. Ah. Alliance leader Zhang San chuckled and returned to his disciple's side. He seemed to have a card up his sleeve, and knew that Zhang Xiaohua would definitely agree to it. However, Zhang Xiaohua, who was at the side, was already overjoyed. Please cast a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a collection, a tip. Chapter 12:12. Looking at Zhang Xiaohu's remorseful face and his whispered explanation to Li Jian and the others, Zhang Xiaohua almost laughed out loud. After these thousands of disciples returned to the Righteous Tao Alliance, they would become the backbone of the Righteous Tao Alliance. If they were to nurture their own team one by one, in a few years, the Righteous Tao Alliance would already belong to Ethereal Sect even without Ethereal Sect attacking. The Dalan Temple and the incense cult seemed to know that the leader of the Alliance of Righteous Sects, Zhang Xiaohu, had something to discuss with the Misty School. Therefore, they lowered their heads and regulated their breathing, ignoring the whispers between Zhang Xiaohu and the elders of the Misty School. Beside the quiet forest, the low, intermittent chirping of insects served as a foil to the mystery of the forest. Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. She extended her divine sense and scanned the area 1,000 feet around the four sects. She seemed to have found something. 1,000 feet away, there was a large area of rocks. There were no trees, and the huge rocks reflected the moonlight slightly. Wherever the cold wind blew, the grass between the rocks swayed. There was nothing else. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense swept through the area and found that it was normal. However, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat, and he felt that there was something wrong. Hero Wen cough, Vice Sect Leader Wen, about 1,000 feet north of here, is there a large area of rocks? Zhang Xiaohua asked in a low voice. About that, reporting, Elder, I came here at night from Index Finger Peak. I didn't check the surroundings. When Wenhai said apologetically, Is there anything strange there? Zhang Xiaohu asked. No. Zhang Xiaohua was about to answer when her expressions suddenly changed. She hurriedly said, I have something to do. I'll come back later. As she said that, she put her hand in Zhang Xiaohu's hand and turned around to cast the flying spell. She left on her own. Zhang Xiaohu stared blankly for a moment. Pinching the soft object in his hand, he immediately knew that it was the extremely precious sheepskin scroll. He casually stuffed it into his bosom without a trace. Then, he heard the elder behind him ask in a displeased tone, Sect Leader Zhang, where did fellow Taoist Panin go? Now is the time to cover his tracks. Why did he leave? Zhang Xiaohu was stunned. He couldn't say that it was midnight and his brother needed to sleep, right? He could only say, I'll let you know, Grandmaster. Taoist priest discovered that something was amiss 1,000 feet away. He personally went to take a look. What? 1,000 zhang away? Master Longevity sucked in a breath of cold air while Nanjing cried out in alarm. What? Am I wrong? Zhang Xiaohu was shocked. He turned his head and asked Wenhai, What did you say just now? Sect leader, Taoist Pan, just asked me if I passed by 1,000 feet away from here. He felt that there was something wrong there. Master Tiangang, Master Yuan Dao, Master Yuan Ming, and Nun Shuqing all had ugly expressions. Standing here, one's divine sense could see 1,000 feet away. That was a waste of time. Moreover, he knew the flying spell. This Taoist priest Panin? Which generation's senior master was he? Nun Jingyi's face turned green when she thought of 1,000 feet away. She couldn't understand when the Misty School had such a senior who had such a deep relationship with them. Master Longevity looked into the distance at Zhang Xiaohua, who had long disappeared, and said in a low voice, "With this senior's help, this trip to the secret plane will be safe." Then, everyone sat down in their respective places. However, after waiting for a long time, the full moon had already set in the west. Zhang Xiaohua still hadn't returned. Nun Jingyi wanted to get up several times, but when she saw that Master Longevity didn't move, she restrained herself. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore. Just as she was about to get up, Master Longevity also stood up. The two of them looked at each other and walked to Zhang Xiaohu. They cupped their hands and said, "Sect leader Zhang, we know that your sect's Taoist priest Panin's cultivation is profound and there won't be any problems with him going to investigate. However, he's been gone for a long time. I'm afraid there might be some mishap. If we go to help, what do you think?" Zhang Xiaohu smiled bitterly in his heart. What could he say? He could only nod and say, "I'm also surprised. Did something happen to Taoist priest Pan? It's only 1,000 feet away. If something happened, there would have been a commotion. I don't think it's anything urgent. Maybe Taoist priest Pan saw the beautiful moonlight tonight and hid in a corner to admire it. That's also possible." At this point, he saw the strange expressions on the two's faces and immediately said, "Although I'm also worried, my cultivation is shallow and I don't dare to go. What if I trouble the elders of the Dalan Temple and the incense cult? I'm also worried that something might go wrong." Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohu to finish speaking, Master Longevity waved his hand. Great Master Changgung and Master Changxing floated up into the air and went straight to the south, 1,000 feet away. Hee. Since the two great masters have gone, I'm relieved. Zhang Xiaohu stopped nagging. 1,000 feet away was actually not far. Just as Zhang Xiaohu stopped talking and turned to look to the south, everyone frowned slightly. They wanted to know what Taoist priest Pan had discovered. Suddenly, two extremely bright lights came from 1,000 feet away. Then, there was a faint cry of surprise, followed by a rumbling sound. Hearing this familiar rumbling sound, Master Longevity's expression changed immediately. Shindao sect. That's right, it's between the clouds and the water. Master Jingyi also gritted her teeth. This Bai Yanqiu is really everywhere. Changgang Changxing. Master Tiangong's expression also changed. Master Yuandao waved his hand and pulled out the demon-subduing pestle from his back. Master Yuanming also threw his hand, and the Mao bead also turned into the size of a plate and flew into the air. However, before the two of them could fly 100 feet away, they heard a voice in the distance. "Don't worry, great masters. We'll come." Wasn't that the voice of Bai Yanqiu between the clouds and the water? The two great masters, Yuan Dao and Yuan Ming, paused in the air for a moment before flying back to stand beside Master Tiangang. They didn't put away the demon-subduing pestle in their hands and the Mao bead in the air. Master Longevity and Master Jingyi looked coldly at Bai Yanqiu, who was flying over from afar, and Changgung and Changxing, who were captured by Hao Feng and Taoist Hao Yu. They didn't say a word. When Bai Yanqiu flew closer, he cupped his hands and smiled. So the incense cult, Dalan Temple, and Misty School, other than my four immortal Tao sects, between the clouds and the water are all saber-rising. But why is the Righteous Alliance also here? Today's moonlight is beautiful, but how did this barren mountain attract the most famous four immortal Tao sects in Jianghu? Bai Yanqiu, my Dalan Temple's Changgung and Master Changxing. How are they? Master Changxing couldn't help but ask when he saw the two great masters being captured and their divine sense blocked by Hao Yun. It's nothing. They just suffered some minor injuries. Bai Yanqiu chuckled. Our disciples between the clouds and the water were admiring the moon, But these two great masters came to disturb us and disturbed our mood. Taoist Hao Yun just punished them slightly. The Mountain River Map. Master Jing Yi clenched her teeth. That day on Mount Yao, Bai Zhangmen used the Mountain River Map to hide the figures of the disciples between the clouds and the water. He wanted to seize the initiative when the immortal mansion of Mount Yao appeared. Who knew that the immortal mansion wasn't on Mount Yao, but in the void above Mount Yao? Bai Zhangmen's Mountain River Map exposed his whereabouts. Why didn't I think of that? This Mountain River Map is the best at hiding one's aura. With the surrounding terrain, even the divine sense of the immortal path can't detect it. Master Jingyi is really brilliant, but I also didn't expect that these two monks would suddenly appear when we were hiding well. Where's Master Panin? Zhang Xiaohu asked in a timely manner. Master Panin? Bai Yanqiu was stunned. He shook his head and said, Master Panin flew away from us? Zhang Xiaohu frowned and turned to look at Master Chongqing, expressing his innocence. At this time, Master Chongqing didn't want to investigate further. He only sneered and said, Between the clouds and the water captured two great masters of my Dalan temple. Do you want to declare war on my Dalan temple? I wouldn't dare, Bai Yanqiu replied with a smile in his eyes. I'm not talented. I know that my words carry little weight, so I have no choice but to ask the two great masters to be my bargaining chip. As long as Master Chongqing agrees to my conditions, I'll immediately release the two great masters. Master Chongqing sneered, my Dalan temple can be easily coerced. Bai Yanqiu, what do you want? Please say it quickly. If it's feasible, we can agree to it. You should leave as soon as you get the benefits. Otherwise, our four sects will join forces and destroy your descendants between the clouds and the water. Abbess Jingyi, why are you so angry? What else could I have come here for? I just want to enter the secret land with you and get some benefits. What secret land? Bai Zhang, what is he talking about? Why can't I understand? Master Jingyi laughed. Is that so? Master Jingyi, you're not being honest. You're bullying my descendants between the clouds and the water. Have they ever been destroyed? Bai Yanqiu laughed and waved his hand. Ping, come here. Ping, Everyone was stunned. From afar, a figure slowly walked over using qinggong. Looking at the figure, his qinggong was very poor. Presumably, his martial arts weren't high either. However, when that person walked into the arena, the Righteous Alliance's alliance leader Zhang San shouted, Situ Ping? You're actually a disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water? Then Misty Schools when One High was also shocked. Leader Situ? Then he shook his head and said, I really didn't expect it. Everyone, who do you think this person is? It's the leader of the evil tiger gang, Situ Ping, who was led by Wan Jianfeng's disciple, Ma Xiangyang, when Wen Hai and Yanming Jushi entered the forest for the first time. You, how could it be you? Siping, you actually dared to deceive this old man? Alliance Master Zhang San repeated this sentence. When he joined forces with the incense cult and the Dalan temple to force O Peng to death, he had already lost sight of Situ Ping. At that time, he had sent many people to look for him, but there was no news. Later, when the Righteous Alliance took over the Misty School, there was no need for Situ Ping to exist anymore. Thus, he threw this person to the back of his mind. What he didn't expect was that Situ Ping would appear when he least expected it. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote, please collect, please tip, thank you. Chapter 12-13. Situ Ping, you're the leader of the evil tiger gang, but you're also a disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water. You told us about Wan Jianfeng, the sheepskin scroll, and the forest. Was it by Yanqiu's order? When we confronted the Dalan temple and the incense cult, we couldn't find you. Were you taken away by Between the Clouds and the Water? Alliance leader Zhang is indeed a smart person. It's exactly as you said. However, the Evil Tiger Gang and the Evil Tiger Mountain Villa have been used by the Alliance of Righteous Sects for a long time. I miss them very much. I've always wanted to go back and see if they're still the same as before. Bai Zhang, you're too calculative. Alliance leader Zhang San sighed. Hee, Alliance leader Zhang San is too kind. Ping only found out about it by chance. That's why he hurriedly reported it to me. If I had known about it earlier, wouldn't have been here. Actually, Bai Zhangmin didn't have to use so many tricks. He could have just destroyed the 4 sects and obtained the 4 sheepskin scrolls. Alliance leader Zhang San said, puzzled. That's what I thought, but Alliance leader O of the Misty School and Yang Ruping are both descendants of the Immortal Path sects. If I acted rashly, Between the Clouds and the Water would have been exposed. If your 3 sects caught wind of this, with the strength of your 3 sects, Between the Clouds and the Water, would I still be safe and sound? She then said hatefully, to be honest, I've also done a lot of tricks in the other 3 sections. Unfortunately, my luck wasn't good. None of the sheepskin scrolls fell into the hands of Between the Clouds and the Water, so, today I had no choice but to do this. Alliance leader Zhang San gritted his teeth. He had been plotting since he got the information about the sheepskin scrolls from Situ Ping, as well as the secret of the Immortal Path. The destruction of the Misty School was also part of Bai Yanqiu's plan. Now that the incense cult, the Dalan Temple, and the Misty School were greatly weakened, the alliance of righteous sects was even more miserable. This was all thanks to Bai Yanqiu of Between the Clouds and the Water. How could he not bear a grudge? Bai Yanqiu of Between the Clouds and the Water was the instigator of the decline of the alliance of righteous sects. Needless to say, Bai Yanqiu had been labeled as such by alliance leader Zhang San. Then, alliance leader Zhang San said coldly, "What? Bai Zhangmen, what do you mean? You've been plotting for so long, involving the famous 4 sects in Jianghu, and now you've captured the 2 masters of the Dalan Temple. Are you planning to take the treasure for yourself?" Alliance leader Zhang San, you're exaggerating. How can I, Between the Clouds and the Water, have such a big appetite? Between the Clouds and the Water is not the Beidou School, and this secret plane is not the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. How can I, the leader of this sect, take all the treasure for myself? Then, Bai Yanqiu looked at Master Changsheng and Nun Jingyi and said with a smile, Between the Clouds and the Water is also a big sect with immortal inheritance, so we're also qualified to enter this secret plane. I don't have many requests, I just want to enter the secret plane with the alliance of righteous sects and the Misty School, and have the same treatment as them. Nun Jingyi was a little hesitant. She looked at Master Changsheng and said in a low voice, the 2 masters Chang Gung and Chang Xing are in the hands of Between the Clouds and the Water. Master, please make the decision on this matter. Master Chang Sheng pondered for a moment, and told her about the agreement between the sects and said, if Between the Clouds and the Water joins, each sect should get 20%. Master Chang Sheng, you can't say that. Between the Clouds and the Water doesn't have a sheepskin scroll, how can she get 20%? I'm afraid 5% is already a lot. Alliance Master Zhang San shouted. 5%? Bai Yanqiu sneered. Alliance Master Zhang San has a good plan. Could it be that you're treating Between the Clouds and the Water like a beggar? Then how many places do you want? Alliance Master Zhang San also sneered. 20%. Bai Yanqiu glanced at Chang Xing and Chang Gung and said decisively, Between the Clouds and the Water wanted 20%, so the other 4 sects naturally also wanted 20%. The Alliance of Righteous Sects wanted to give the Misty School 15%, so the Alliance of Righteous Sects only had 5% left. How could Alliance Master Zhang San agree? 20%? Alliance Master Zhang San laughed so hard that his waist almost bent. He pointed at Bai Yanqiu, shook his head, and said, You're really imaginative. Seeing Alliance Master Zhang San laugh, Master Chang Sheng frowned, thought for a moment, and said, Alliance Master Zhang San, how about this? My Dalan Temple will give up 5% to make up for your Alliance of Righteous Sects losses. What do you think? So that's how it is. Alliance Master Zhang San was stunned, then nodded slightly, and said with a smile, If Master Zhang San says so, our Alliance of Righteous Sects will naturally agree. Hearing this, Master Chongqing breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to ask Bai Yanxiu to let them go, he heard Alliance Master Zhang San say, "But our alliance of righteous sects fell at the hands of between the clouds and the water. If they get the benefits, how will our alliance of righteous sects have a place to stand in the future? So, please understand, Master Chongqing. Today, I can't agree to let between the clouds and the water enter the secret ground." "Zhang San," Master Chongqing scolded, "don't you dare challenge this old monk's bottom line." Bai Yanxiu was also shocked. He looked at the few martial arts disciples of the Alliance of Righteous Sects with interest, and said slowly, "Alliance Master Zhang San, aren't you afraid of being killed by the elders of between the clouds and the water? With just these few martial arts disciples?" He, of course, between the clouds and the water has the ability to do so. Our Alliance of Righteous Sects also has no power to fight back, but can the Dalan Temple agree? Can the Incense Sect agree? Can the Misty School agree? Then he bowed to Master Chongqing and said, "Master, I'm afraid that I've made things difficult for you. However, without my parchment, I'm afraid that this secret ground is just a flower in the mirror, the moon in the water." Then, as if he thought of something, he slapped his forehead and said, "Oh, look at my memory. Where did I hide the parchment? I really forgot about it. But it's true. Other than myself, no one else knows where it is hidden. If I really forgot this secret ground, I'll never be able to enter it again. Oh, I remember again. Master Chongqing, when we leave the secret ground tomorrow morning, won't the Dalan Temple, the Incense Sect, and the Misty School escort me to a safe place?" The elders' faces were ashen, Nun Jingyi was deep in thought, and Zhang Xiao, who looked on coldly, Bai Yanxiu, was in a difficult position. There was only the sound of the wind blowing. The moon was also covered by the thick dark clouds that were blown by the wind, and no light could be seen. The wind gradually became colder. Little by little, the small snowflakes that were like grains of salt slowly fell down. After an unknown period of time, Master Chongqing sighed, stepped forward and said, "How about this? Bai Zhangnan, you also know that without the parchment of the Righteous Alliance, none of us can enter the secret ground. If Alliance Master Chongqing doesn't want your sect to enter, can your sect wait outside? My Dalan Temple can give 20% to your sect, leaving only 5%. Bai Yanxiu narrowed her eyes, as if the snowflakes had hit her eyelashes. She thought for a moment, looked up at the sky and said, "This damn weather, why is it suddenly snowing?" Master Chongqing didn't answer, but Bai Yanxiu murmured again, "It should be early in the morning now. In another 2 hours, the sky will be bright. If we can't find a place to enter the forest when the sky is bright, I'm afraid that even with the parchment, we won't be able to enter the forest." Master Chongqing's face changed again, and he said coldly, "Bai Zhangnan, what do you mean?" Bai Yanxiu stroked her hair and said with a smile, "What can I mean? I'm just reminding Master that tonight is a cloudy day, and there's heavy snow. The sunlight may not appear, and we may not be able to find a place to enter the forest." "Bai Zhangnan, you're mistaken. This is us, the 4 sections. It doesn't include between the clouds and the water." Alliance Master Chongqing said fearlessly. "Bai Zhangmen, do you think 20% is too little?" Master Chongqing suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, "Yes, it's a little too little. We between the clouds and the water are also from a large immortal sect, and we also rushed into the forbidden ground and the formation. Master won't let us enter the secret ground, so what does this so-called 20% mean to us between the clouds and the water?" Bai Yanxiu said frankly. "Bai Zhongnan, please speak frankly." Master Chongqing lost his patience. "All right. Since Master wants me to speak frankly, then I won't be polite." Bai Yanxiu said as she stretched out her hand and made a 5 sign. 50%? Master Chongqing shook his head. The Dalan Temple only has 25%. This 50%? I definitely can't agree. Master, you're mistaken. Bai Yanxiu said with a smile like a flower, "The 50% I'm talking about is 50% of all the treasures that the Dalan Temple obtained in the secret ground." Roar, Master Chongqing roared like a lion raising its head. Bai Zheng, you've gone too far. A gust of wind blew from Master Chang Sheng, blowing straight toward Bai Yanqiu. The sound also shook Bai Yanqiu's head slightly. Just as Bai Yanqiu moved slightly, Master Chang Sheng moved. He stretched out his hand, and his 5 fingers directly grabbed toward Bai Yanqiu's face. Be careful, Master, Taoist Hao Feng, who was beside Bai Yanqiu, reminded. As soon as Master Chang Sheng roared, Bai Yanqiu felt that something was wrong. Without waiting for him to open his eyes, his body floated up and flew backward. Seeing this, Master Chang Sheng's body did not change. He urged the vital energy in his meridians and also floated up. Then, a suction force appeared between his 5 fingers out of thin air, covering Bai Yanqiu's face. Bai Yanqiu was even more shocked when he saw this. He blurted out, "Dragon controlling hand?" Actually, how could this be an ordinary dragon controlling hand? When the suction force covered Bai Yanqiu's face, an indescribable throbbing appeared in Bai Yanqiu's heart. It was as if the palm was gradually expanding, so big that it grabbed Bai Yanqiu's entire gaze. This is bad. Seeing Master Chang Sheng use such a method, how could Bai Yanqiu not know how powerful it was? As his body retreated rapidly, he was about to take out a Dharma artifact from his back. However, Master Chang Sheng's palm was right in front of Bai Yanqiu's face. Bai Yanqiu did not even have time to retreat. How could he have the time to take out a Dharma artifact? Chapter 12:14. Zhang Xiaohu was shocked by the sudden change. Before he could see the fight between Master Chang Sheng and Bai Yanqiu clearly, he heard a 7-colored brilliance flash beside Bai Yanqiu, followed by a miserable scream. When Zhang Xiaohu focused his gaze, he saw a 7-colored ring flashing past Master Chang Sheng's chest. It was Master Tiangang's Wheel of Expansion. When Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming took out their respective magic tools, Master Tiangang also took out his Wheel of Mortal Evolution. However, he hid his traces and stayed close to the ground, so that Master Taoist Hao Feng of the Water Cloud sect would not notice him. Now that he saw Master Chang Sheng take action, how could Master Tiangang not know that this matter could not be settled peacefully? With a hand seal, the mortal wheel flew up. Taoist Hao Feng had just warned Bai Yanqiu and did not expect that the mortal wheel would fly into his back from the ground. How powerful was the mortal wheel? As soon as it came into contact with Taoist Hao Feng, it immediately drilled into his flesh. Not to mention that Taoist Hao Feng did not have a protective light shield. Even if he had one, it would have been damaged if he was caught off guard. As a result, the Wheel of Mortal Expansion spun and flew out from Taoist Hao Feng's chest. Taoist Hao Feng loosened his grip and Grandmaster Chang Sheng fell to the ground. Grandmaster Yuan Ming pointed his finger and the Maomu Pearl shot towards Taoist Hao Yu, who was still holding Grandmaster Chang Gung. Junior brother, Hao Yu was right beside Master Chang Gung. Seeing that Master Chang Gung was killed by the Wheel of Expansion before he could save him in time, his eyes were already wide open. He shouted with a ruthless look in his eyes. Seeing the Mao Pearl flying towards him, his hand moved slightly and a defensive jade talisman was shot out. His other hand reached out slightly and grabbed Great Master Chang Gung's throat. Then he exerted force. Great Master Chang Gung's head tilted and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that he was dead. Grandmaster Yuan Ming originally wanted to save Grandmaster Chang Gung, but he didn't expect Taoist Hao Yu to be so ruthless. He didn't care about his own life and wanted to kill Chang Gung. He couldn't help but grit his teeth and fiercely activated the true qi in his meridians. Grandmaster Yuan Ming's injuries hadn't healed yet, and now that he activated his true qi, his meridians were injured again. The Molu Pearl suddenly expanded, and with a bang sound, it hit Taoist Hao Yu's back with extreme speed. Master Hao Yu's defensive light barrier had not been completely released. After being hit by the Mao Pearl, it immediately shattered into pieces and dissipated in the air. Master Hao Yu also spat out a large mouthful of blood. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. However, Master Hao Yu stubbornly held on. He waved the lightning hammer in his hand and a bolt of lightning appeared out of thin air, flashing towards the Mao Pearl. Just as Master Yuan Ming was about to use the Mao Pearl to save Great Master Chang'eng, Master Yuan Dao also waved his demon vanquishing pestle and directly flew to Master Chang Xing's side. At this moment, Nun Shu Qing was shocked. She also waved the plain cloud white flag in her hand, and countless small white lotuses appeared around Master Chang Xing, protecting him tightly. Then, when he saw Taoist Bright Moon snapping Taoist Chang'eng's throat, Taoist Yuan Dao roared, "Go!" The demon fall pestle immediately turned into a stream of light and slammed towards Taoist Bright Moon. "How dare you!" Master Hao Yun shouted from the side. His tone was also filled with grief. He threw a small black shadow in his hand upwards. Dong! A huge tremor came from that black shadow, causing everyone's ears to buzz. Heaven's shaking drum? Seeing this, Master Tiangang laughed instead of getting angry. This heaven shaking drum has already been damaged. What's there to show off? It's a pity that you don't have the heaven shaking hammer. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to beat this heaven shaking drum. We would have to avoid it. Master Tiangang laughed loudly. The mortal wheel whistled as it flew towards Master Hao Yun. Is that so? Master Hao Yun laughed nastily. He reached into his bosom and took out a short object that was only 3 inches long. Heaven's shaking hammer? Master Tiangang was slightly stunned. It was obvious that he had never seen a heaven shaking hammer before. At this moment, the mortal wheel also approached Master Hao Yun's body. Back to Master Chang Sheng and Bai Yanqiu. Master Chang Sheng clawed at Bai Yanqiu's face. A powerful gravitational force was born from Master Chang Sheng's palm. Bai Yanqiu was greatly shocked and quickly retreated. However, Master Chang Sheng's levitation technique was only slightly better than Bai Yanqiu's. The 5 fingers were getting closer and closer to Bai Yanqiu's face. When he retreated, Bai Yanqiu's hair that was coiled into a bun on top of his head also scattered. Beautiful hair like clouds was originally a kind of beauty. However, at this moment, it became Bai Yanqiu's shortcoming. That strand of black hair fell into Master Chang Sheng's hand. A ruthless look appeared in Master Chang Sheng's eyes. He wrapped his fingers around the black hair and gently pulled it back. Ouch! A scream came out of Bai Yanqiu's mouth. However, no matter how painful it was, Bai Yanqiu did not dare to stop. Bai Yanqiu stretched out his left hand and was about to use his true energy to cut off the hair. At this moment, she only felt the strength in Master Chang Sheng's hands suddenly increase. She did not dare to hesitate anymore and fiercely shook her head. Suddenly, a large strand of hair was pulled out from Bai Yanqiu's scalp by Master Chang Sheng. With a whoosh, Bai Yanqiu sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, with a bang, Bai Yanqiu felt that he seemed to have bumped into someone from behind. Bai Yanqiu did not think too much and grabbed that person with his backhand. "Lord Sect Leader!" That person exclaimed. It was Sidu Ping, who had hidden here because he saw a conflict. Bai Yanqiu did not care who she was. He used his strength and shook it forward, blocking Sidu Ping's head in front of Master Chang Sheng's hand. Then, with the force of Sidu Ping's forward push, Bai Yanqiu's figure flipped and floated far away, while Master Chang Sheng was blocked in front of Sidu Ping. Amitabha! Excellent! Master Chang Sheng chanted the name of Buddha. He was merciless. Before Sidu Ping could breathe, he pointed his finger. Sidu Ping's head was easily torn apart like a watermelon. Sidu Ping's corpse fell to the ground. Ha! Bai Yanqiu, who had escaped far away, laughed loudly and said, "A monk is merciful. Master Chang Sheng, you have broken your vow to kill. Subduing demons and eliminating devils is the mercy of Buddha. This old monk has never abstained from killing. Bai Yanqiu, hand over your life." Master Chang Sheng was really angry. Seeing that Bai Yanqiu was far away, he took off the prayer beads hanging in front of his chest and threw them into the air. The prayer beads also expanded with the wind, covering Bai Yanqiu like a fishing net. Hee! Bai Yanqiu laughed coldly. He took out a bow from somewhere. It was the heaven-shaking bow that she used in the Huayu Palace of the Spreading Incense cult. Seeing Bai Yanqiu draw the bow, he did not knock an arrow. He released his fingers, and with a bang, a ray of red brilliance appeared from the bowstring. It went straight toward Alliance Master Zhang San, who was dumbfounded. The Master Chang Xing was slightly angry. Just as he was about to use the prayer beads to block Alliance Master Zhang San, he saw a black shadow as fast as lightning flash in front of Alliance Master Zhang San. It hit the red brilliance. With a bang, the brilliance scattered. What appeared before everyone's eyes was a long whip that looked like a python. One end of the long whip was in Abbess Jingyi's hand. "Good, Abbess Jingyi, look after Zhang San." Master Chang Xing was overjoyed. He activated his true qi and cast the spell in his hand. The prayer beads whistled and covered by Yanqiu's head. After Abbess Jingyi defeated by Yanqiu's attack, she stood in front of Alliance Master Zhang San. With a peach blossom whip in her hand, she looked around and shouted, "Junior Sister Xuezhen, bring the disciples of the Spreading Incense cult over and protect the disciples of the Righteous Alliance." Then she shouted to Zhang Xiaohu, "Sect Master Zhang San, the situation is critical. I'm sure you can see that Sect Master Zhang San is a person who has stepped into the path of immortality. The people of the Righteous Alliance are protecting Sect Master Zhang San. If anything happens to Sect Master Zhang San, none of us will be able to enter the secret ground." Zhang Xiaohu looked around and then looked at the battle not far away that he could not participate in. He nodded slightly. Thus, the disciples of the Spreading Incense cult quickly walked to the left side of the Righteous Alliance disciples with swords in hand. The people of the Misty School also walked over to the right side of the Righteous Alliance disciples. However, they were still some distance away from the Righteous Alliance disciples. One could see the dissatisfaction in their hearts. 3 Zhang to the left of Master Chang Xing, Master Yuandao's demon subduing pestle flew towards Taoist Hao Yu. The lightning hammer in Hao Yu's hand had just sent Master Yuanming's Molu pearl flying. It was already too late for him to activate his true qi. He had no choice but to turn around and use the lightning hammer to strike the demon's subduing pestle. A huge force came from the demon's subduing pestle, causing Taoist Hao Yu's arm to go numb and his body to retreat a few steps. "Oh, not good." Without waiting for Taoist Hao Yu to stabilize his body, the Molu pearl in his divine sense came crashing down towards Taoist Hao Yu's head. Taoist Hao Yu did not dare to be negligent. Lowering his hands, his body squatted on the ground and exerting force with both hands, his entire body shot out like an arrow in the dark night, sticking close to the ground and flying towards the right. But at this moment, Taoist Hao Yu's face suddenly changed. He tried his best to stop his body and head towards another direction. But just now, he had used all his strength. How could he move away just because he wanted to? With a pu sound, the demon subduing pestle transformed into a flying sword and appeared in the darkness. It was the demon subduing pestle that Taoist Hao Yu had blocked earlier. Master Yuandao pointed at it and buried it in the direction where Taoist Hao Yu's body was retreating. Taoist Hao Yu was caught off guard and was struck by the demon subduing pestle. That demon subduing pestle had pierced right into Taoist Hao Yu's head, smashing it into pieces. Although Taoist Hao Yu was already dead, his rapidly moving body did not stop. Sticking close to the ground, he slid for a long distance. At this moment, the sky was already bright. The salt-like snowflakes were gradually getting bigger. A thin layer of grayish-white snow covered the ground. Taoist Hao Yu's body cleared away the layer of snow on the ground, revealing the withered grass under the snow. His blood stains had dyed the withered grass red. At this moment, a dong sound of a drum sounded. It was like a shock to everyone's heart, causing everyone's heart to jump for no reason. Please cast a monthly vote, please cast a recommendation vote, please collect it, please tip it. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to cast a recommendation vote or monthly vote. Chapter 12:15. This. Master Yuandao and Master Yuanming joined hands to kill Taoist Hao Yu and were about to deal with Bai Yanqiu when they heard this drum. They unconsciously looked at each other, their eyes filled with horror. Another sound followed. Everyone's heart was still beating along with the sound of the drum, and many people's faces were flushed red. Just as the drum sounded, Master Tiangong's mortal will also arrived in front of Taoist Hao Yun. However, the vibration of the drum seemed to have set up a layer of invisible defense around Taoist Hao Yun. When the mortal will came into contact with the invisible restriction, it couldn't fly any further. It tried several times, but it couldn't fly even an inch closer. Thump, 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 thump. One sound, two sounds, one sound after another, the drum beats became more and more concentrated, and the faces of the people present became bright red. First, they started to jump along with the drum beats. It was as if everything in the field was controlled by the drum beats. Quick, break his defense, or else we'll all die from heartbeat. Master Tiangang shouted. Woo woo, 2 consecutive sounds rang out. The mola bead and the demon subduing pestle flew over, each striking the restriction formed around Taoist Master Hao Yun. No light could be seen, but no matter how hard they tried, they were unable to break through. Pa! With a clear shout, Nun Jingyi's whip flew over again, and lashed around Taoist Hao Yun. Nun Shuqing, who had just rescued Master Chongqing, moved the plain cloud white flag in her hand, and countless small lotus flowers appeared around Taoist Hao Yun. Each flower emitted a bright light and disappeared in a flash. Taoist Hao Yun, who was holding the heaven-shaking drum and heaven-smashing hammer, had a green light flickering on his face. His forehead was already covered in sweat, but when he activated the heaven-shaking drum, he saw the death of his 2 junior brothers, and his eyes were filled with anger. Now that he saw the various magic tools attacking him, he knew that today would be the end of a life and death struggle. After the green light faded from Taoist Master Hao Yun's face, the beating of the drums became even more intense. Dong dong dong, dong 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 dong. Among the people present, those with profound cultivations leapt into the air and clenched their teeth, desperately striking the magic tools in their hands towards Taoist Master Hao Yun. Those with shallow cultivations used their hands to cover their ears and circulated all the power in their bodies to resist the beating of the drums. However, the sound of the heaven-shaking drum did not seem to be heard by the ears, but directly struck their hearts. In the Righteous Alliance, several martial arts experts were lying on the ground, their bodies rolling non-stop. Their hands were covering their ears, and their teeth were grinding. It was as if all the blood in their bodies had gathered on their faces. Their faces were red, as if they were about to bleed. Boom! A loud sound rang out. Ah! The Righteous Tao Alliance members could no longer hold on. After this loud sound, blood slowly flowed out from their 7 orifices. The hands that were covering their ears also slowly loosened. Their eyes that were filled with fear opened wide as they stared blankly at the falling snowflakes in the sky. Gradually they lost consciousness. Looking at the Righteous Alliance's Alliance Master Zhang San, he could no longer hold back. When the Righteous Alliance members fell to the ground, he immediately sat down cross-legged and silently circulated his heart technique, circulating the inner strength in his body to resist the beating of the drums. But the heaven-shaking drum was a famous weapon of the immortal path. Even Master Tiangang would be wary of it. How could martial arts' inner strength resist it? Seeing his heartbeat quicken and his face bleeding, Alliance Master Zhang San panicked. He immediately reached into his clothes and took out a scarlet-red triangular flag. The strange red color of the flag was extremely obvious in this snowy night. Holding the flag in his left hand, Alliance Master Zhang San took out a green stone with his right hand. He bit his tongue, and with a piu sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood onto the flag. After absorbing the blood, the flag suddenly emitted a blood-red light, following which, a faint red and black smoke was formed. The moment the smoke appeared, Alliance Master Zhang San threw the flag into the air and held the stone in his left hand. His right hand moved slightly and his mouth muttered. The smoke followed Alliance Master Zhang San's fingers and slowly expanded, gradually enveloping Alliance Master Zhang San within it. On the left side of the Righteous Alliance, the disciples of the Fragrant Sect, Peacock, Chin Chin, and Yuan, were all red in the face. They gritted their teeth and their bodies trembled slightly. However, they still sat cross-legged. The weak qi in their bodies circulated rapidly, barely resisting the terrifying beating of the drums. Nun Xuezhen, who was sitting next to the three of them, was just as relaxed. She was also sitting cross-legged, but she first covered her ears with her hands, and then she took them down again. Just as she was about to adjust her breathing, she couldn't help but stretch out her hands and cover her ears again. After a few times, blood gradually seeped out of her mouth and nose. On the right side of the Righteous Alliance, the disciples of the Misty School had already felt that something was wrong when Taoist Master Hao Yun took out the heaven-shaking drum and the heaven-smashing hammer. They immediately sat cross-legged. Zhang Xiaohu sat at the front, circulating the Kuan Peng transformation mantra in his meridians. The mantra of the Kuan Peng transformation mantra was the most important thing about fighting in the air, flapping one's wings, and trying to compete with the heavens. As for this shocking drum sound, it was like a hurricane in a dark rain. Wave after wave, Zhang Xiaohu still had a sliver of leeway to resist it. As for Li Jian and the others, although their internal energy was high, they were unable to resist the beating of the heaven-shaking drum. After a few beats, they were already bleeding from their ears and noses, rolling on the ground. They were not much stronger than the disciples of the Righteous Alliance. With a loud dong, just as the hearts of the Righteous Alliance disciples were shattered, Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, Wen Wenhai, and Lu Yueming's bodies also shook violently. Large mouthfuls of blood flowed out from their noses and mouths. Their eyes and ears were also bloodshot. Zhang Xiaohu also jumped along with the beating of the drum. His hands involuntarily went to cover his ears, but just as his hands passed by his chest, he suddenly remembered the rabbit jade talisman that Zhang Xiaohua had given them at Yao Mountain. At this time, he couldn't care about anything else and shouted, "Elderly, quickly, Xiaohua gave me the jade talisman." As he spoke, he took the jade talisman from his chest. Without even looking at it clearly, he immediately exerted force in his hand. With a pa sound, the jade talisman that didn't look like a rabbit was crushed. A faint golden light flashed and a thin layer of light appeared around Zhang Xiaohu. With the formation of the light shield, the deafening beating of the drum gradually decreased. In the end, although the sound of the drum was deafening, it could only be heard in the ears and could no longer directly penetrate into Zhang Xiaohu's heart. Sigh. Zhang Xiaohu let out a sigh of relief. When he hurriedly looked back, he couldn't help but be shocked. At this time, Li Jian had already crushed the jade talisman and was in the process of forming a light shield. However, Lu Qingyang and the other two were already vomiting blood. Although they had already taken out the jade talisman, they didn't have the strength to crush it. Zhang Xiaohu didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly helped them crush the jade talisman one by one. Only when he saw the three faint golden light shields rise did he breathe a sigh of relief. At this time, Li Jian also stood up and hurriedly went over to check the pulse of the three people. Only then did he feel relieved. Looking at Zhang Xiaohu and the three people lying on the ground, his eyes were full of complex emotions. Dong 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 dong. A series of rapid drum beats. At this time, in the ears of Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jian, it was no different from the usual drum beats. On the side of the fragrance cult, Senior Nun Xuezhen screamed and vomited a large mouthful of blood before falling to the ground. It was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Peacock and the other two also began to bleed from their 7 orifices. Righteous Tao Alliance. In the red and black mist, Alliance Master Zhang San's face was pale and his facial features were somewhat ferocious. His 7 orifices were also oozing blood. Pu piu piu. 3 inaudible sounds of blood spurting out were already covered by the sound of the heaven-shaking drum. However, the person who spurted out blood was not someone else, but Tao Master Hao Yun, who was beating the heaven-shaking drum. These 3 mouthfuls of blood were spat out on the heaven-shaking drum. The heaven-shaking drum absorbed the 3 mouthfuls of blood essence, and its brilliance became even brighter. It slightly expanded by half. As for Tao Master Hao Yun, who spurted out the blood essence, after a flash of green, his face suddenly became pale and he seemed to have become thinner and weaker. Reverse blood corroding essence? Master Tiangang shouted, "Quick, Yuan Dao, use the demon-subduing pestle to attack." This brat is already strong on the outside but weak on the inside. We need to hold on for a while longer. Even if we can't kill him, the backlash from the heaven-shaking drum will definitely kill him. Master Tiangang's words were extremely true. The heaven-shaking drum and the heaven-breaking hammer were ancient divine weapons. They were not something that ordinary Qi practitioners could wield. This was also the reason why Tao Master Hao Yun did not take out the heaven-shaking drum earlier. Just the heaven-shaking drum alone. Tao Master Hao Yun would not be able to recover his Yuan Qi for several months after using it, not to mention the heaven-breaking hammer. Tao Master Hao Yun was also injured. If not for the fact that Tao Master Hao Yu and Tao Master Hao Feng were both killed, he would definitely not have used the heaven-shaking drum at the same time. Seeing that Master Tiangang and the other great enemies were not injured and only a few ordinary disciples of the Righteous Alliance died, Tao Master Hao Yun could not help but feel anxious. He knew that he could not hold on for long. He immediately used a secret art similar to the reverse blood corroding essence, channeling all of his Yuan Qi into the heaven-shaking drum. When Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming heard Master Tiangang's words, they forcefully suppressed the blood in their chest and also circulated their qi. With a wave of their hands, the demon-subduing pestle slammed down like a mountain. The Mao Pearl was like a full moon as it struck towards Tao Master Hao Yun's back. Master Tiangang's wheel of evolution also spun rapidly, crashing towards Tao Master Hao Yun's chest. At the same time, Nun Shuqing unfurled the plain cloud white flag and many small lotus flowers also attacked Tao Master Hao Yun. Nun Jingyi's 7 orifices were bleeding slightly and her limbs were weak. She held the peach blossom whip in her hand. Just like Master Chang Sheng, who was bleeding from his 7 orifices, she attacked by Yanqiu. All of you, go to hell. Tao Master Hao Yun roared loudly. His face rapidly shrunk and his entire body's qi essence was flowing away. With a wave of his right hand, he raised the heaven-breaking hammer in his hand and struck towards the heaven-shaking drum. Master Tiangang's face was as red as blood. At this moment, it was slightly pale. He knew that this strike contained all of Tao Master Hao Yun's cultivation. Regardless of whether other people lived or died, this Tao Master Hao Yun would definitely die. However, if this strike hit the heaven-shaking drum and the sound of the drum spread out, how many people would survive would be hard to say. Chapter 12:16. Thinking of this, Master Tiangang looked at Taoist Master Hao Yun, who was struggling to hit the heaven-shaking drum with the heaven-breaking mallet as if he was lifting a heavy object. He also shouted loudly and quickly formed a seal with his hands. From afar, it looked like a blooming lotus flower. Quick! Master Tiangang pointed his finger and the mortal wheel that was about to reach Taoist Master Hao Yun's chest suddenly jumped up and disappeared. Then, it appeared below Taoist Master Hao Yun's heaven-breaking mallet. With a wung sound, it charged towards the heaven-breaking mallet. Bang! The 2 magic treasures collided with each other. The mortal wheel was sent flying horizontally far away while the heaven-pounding hammer was also knocked up. Of course, it was only knocked up half a foot. Taoist Master Hao Yun's arm moved again and the heaven-breaking mallet continued to strike. Just as the heaven-breaking mallet was about to hit the heaven-shaking drum, a bang sound was heard as the Molu Pearl hit Taoist Master Hao Yun's back. Taoist Master Hao Yun's body moved slightly and with a series of crackling sounds, all the lotus flowers on the plain cloud white flag exploded. Finally, with a boom sound, the demon-subduing mallet that was as light as a feather fell on Taoist Master Hao Yun's head. At this time, the drum was silent and the heaven-shaking drum's defense was gone. Taoist Master Hao Yun's body had been broken through by the Molu Pearl and the plain cloud white flag. Taoist Master Hao Yun's body was already dried up and weaker than an ordinary person. At this time, the heaven-breaking mallet was only a finger's distance away from the heaven-shaking drum. That was close. Seeing the demon-subduing mallet succeed, everyone was overjoyed. They put away their magic tools and no longer spoke. They took out pills and sat down cross-legged to adjust their breathing. The heaven-shaking drum and the heaven-breaking mallet quietly floated in the air. No one went to collect them. The 3 disciples of the aroma religion were pale, but they seemed to have calmed down. Only Nun Xuezhen was lying on the ground, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. At the Misty School, Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jian had already rescued Wen Wenhai, Lu Yueming, and Lu Qingyang. At this moment, they were staring coldly at the Righteous Alliance's alliance leader Zhang San, who was shrouded in a cloud of reddish-black smoke. Their eyes were filled with indescribable shock. Not far away, Bai Yanqiu was not affected by the sky-shaking drum because he had taken precautions in advance. He fought alone against Master Longevity and Nun Jingyi, and originally had the upper hand. However, Taoist Master Hao Yun was smashed into meat paste, and the sound of the drum stopped. Bai Yanqiu immediately fell into a disadvantageous position. Seeing that he could not hold on, Bai Yanqiu waved his hand, and a signal flew into the air. He then sneered and said, "You immortal Dao experts are now seriously injured. This sect leader wants to see which martial Dao disciple cut off your heads." At this moment, Master Longevity and Nun Jingyi finally realized that under Bai Yanqiu's mountain and river map, there must be many immortal Dao or martial Dao experts on the same level as Liang Zongxiu and the others lying in ambush. Now that they were injured, killing dozens of them was not a problem. However, it was impossible to kill hundreds or thousands of them. Seeing the change in Master Longevity and Nun Jingyi's expressions, Bai Yanqiu was very proud. But, after waiting for a while, no one came. 1,000 feet was not very far away, and, at this time, the sky was already bright. It was almost dawn, and they could already see things 1,000 feet away. What's going on? Bai Yanqiu was very proud and did not find it strange. It was like extreme joy begets sorrow. However, before Bai Yanqiu could turn around to look at the mountain and river map 1,000 feet away, her eyes casually fell on the corpse of Reverend Hao Yu, who was flying close to the ground. At this time, Reverend Hao Yu's head was shattered. It should have been a mess of flesh and blood. The ground where Reverend Hao Yu's body brushed past should also have a trail of blood. However, what Bai Yanqiu saw was a dried-up lump where Reverend Hao Yu's head should have been. She could not see anything. There was not a single trace of blood on the withered grass and snow behind the corpse. Ah? Bai Yanqiu's heart trembled. Her body immediately floated in midair and looked around in horror, as if she had seen a ghost. Reverend Hao Yu's corpse was not far ahead. It should be Reverend Hao Feng. Reverend Hao Feng's chest was cut horizontally by the yen fan wheel. He should have been dripping with blood and looked very bloody. However, at this time, Reverend Hao Feng was lying there diagonally. Beside him, there was already a thick layer of snow, but it was still pure white. It was as if there was no blood at all. Tenryu sect! Bai Yanqiu hysterically screamed in midair. At this time, she was extremely convinced by Zhang Xiaohua's words. The Dalan Temple, Chuanxiang sect, Misty School, the Righteous Alliance, and Between the Clouds and the Water were already here. If there was someone who had the strength to spare, if it was not the Tenryu sect, who else could it be? And the disciples Between the Clouds and the Water that she brought with her did not heed her signal to come out. Was there even a need to say the result? Seeing Bai Yanqiu flying in midair in horror and hearing Bai Yanqiu's terrified scream, although Master Chang Sheng and Nun Jingyi did not notice the abnormality of the corpse on the snow, their hearts jumped. Before they could ask, they heard a shrill laughter from the mountain map that was 1,000 feet away from Bai Yanqiu. Following that, Sakura, dressed in black and wearing a cloak on his head, appeared from 1,000 feet away with a few people dressed in strange clothes and dozens of ordinary-looking disciples of the Tenryu sect. In the middle of the dozens of disciples was a woman dressed in purple. This woman had big eyes, thick eyebrows, a beauty mark on her left chin and a dimple on her right cheek. This was the dream that Zhang Xiaohua had been thinking about day and night. Sakura? It's really you? Seeing this, Bai Yanqiu couldn't help but laugh. Beidou School's sect leader Ren said that the trap under Yao Mountain was set up by your Tenryu sect. We didn't believe it and thought that you were already hiding in the Tenryu sect to recuperate. Now, it seems that we have all fallen into your trap. Sakura's figure floated in the air and he said shrilly, "What? Master Tiangang, Master Yuan Dao, Master Yuan Ming, and Nun Shuqing are all seriously injured. If they don't retreat to recuperate, how can I go back? Then, looking at the corpses on the ground from afar, he stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. He smiled and said, "If I leave, how can this place be lively? How can Yao Mountain be lively?" Seeing Sakura approaching, Bai Yanqiu didn't dare to stay any longer. After weighing the pros and cons, he turned around and flew to Master Chongqing and Nun Jingyi's side. Seeing that Master Chongqing and Nun Jingyi were still confused, Bai Yanqiu pointed to the Righteous Alliance's disciples on the left and reminded them, "Master, can you see if there is any blood under the bodies of the Righteous Alliance's disciples? See if they are the same as the corpses under Yao Mountain." Only then did Master Chongqing and Nun Jingyi understand. With just a glance, they knew that the corpses of those disciples were the same as the dried corpses without blood on Yao Mountain. Alliance Master Zhang. Seeing the abnormal corpses of the Righteous Alliance's disciples, everyone also saw Alliance Master Zhang San's scarlet flag and the black and red fog around it. When Alliance Master Zhang San saw this, he knew that he couldn't hide the secret, so he smiled and said, "This is the immortal cultivation method that XNG Town's Ma family offered to our alliance. Our alliance's cultivation isn't deep enough, so we don't dare to embarrass ourselves in front of everyone." Immortal cultivation method? Master Chongqing frowned and looked at Nun Jing. Both of them looked at each other in surprise. Sakura, who was far away, seemed to have heard them and shouted, "Alliance Master Zhang San, welcome to our Tenryu sect. What immortal cultivation method is this? It is the supreme cultivation method of our Tenryu sect." Nonsense. Alliance Master Zhang San almost jumped up. "Your demonic sect's cultivation method. Does it need vitality stones? Who said that demonic sect's cultivation method doesn't need vitality stones?" Sakura laughed sharply and took a few steps forward. "Sakura, how did you know about this place?" Master Chongqing shouted angrily. "This is the inheritance of our immortal Dao ancestor. Chongqing, oh Chongqing, don't forget that your Dalan temple, although it's also a immortal Dao sect. It's different from Fragrance Cult, Misty School, and Shen Dao sect. Your inheritance is different from theirs." Sakura replied. "What's more, my Tenryu sect's ancestor Sakura also stayed in this forest before, so why can't my Tenryu sect know about this place?" Then he clapped his hands and said, "Since your Shen Dao sect has Situ Ping, why can't my Tenryu sect have Situ Liang?" As he said this, a disciple walked out from the crowd. Situ Liang? You're actually a disciple of the Tenryu sect? Others didn't recognize Situ Liang, but how could Bai Yanqiu, the head of Between the Clouds and the Water, not recognize him? That's right, this disciple is indeed a disciple of the Tenryu sect. Bai Zhangman, your Shen Dao sect's threshold is too high, this disciple can't pass it, so I can only become a disciple of the Tenryu sect. Situ Liang sneered. Bai Yanqiu's face turned green and red. Back then, by chance, Bai Yanqiu met Situ Ping and Situ Liang. She chose Situ Ping to be a disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water and sent him to the evil tiger gang to be Wan Jianfeng's spy. She threw Situ Liang to the side, but she never would have thought that Situ Liang was already a disciple of the Tenryu sect. "All right, Bai Zheng, it's not that I want to scold you, but you've been planning for so long, yet you're so overcautious. You didn't even dare to deal with O Peng from the Misty School. If you did it earlier, how would you be in such a predicament today? I have to say..." Speaking to here, he paused for a bit, then continued, "You're really too soft-hearted. I was far away in the northwest, but I still received the message sent by Situ Liang. If it wasn't for some unforeseen circumstances, I would have come here personally. Since you didn't participate in the excitement of the secret plane last time, this time, don't disappoint me, okay?" Sakura revealed a mocking smile. How can your Tenryu sect meddle in my affairs? What unforeseen circumstances did you have? Don't decline. If your Tenryu sect had come earlier, I wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess Between the Clouds and the Water." Bai Yanqiu also sneered without any trace of politeness. Right now, she was all alone and had already disregarded her own life, So how could she still have any fear towards Sakura? If I have any matters, why would I need to inform you? Sakura said proudly. Looking at Bai Yanqiu, who was between the clouds and the water, as well as Tenryusek's Sakura, Master Changsheng and Nun Jing-yi were both speechless. That's right, everyone was scheming, but none of them succeeded. Chapter 12:17. After a long while, Master Changsheng sighed. He looked at Nun Jing-yi, Alliance Master Zhang San, and Zhang Xiao. Then he looked at Master Tiangang, Master Yuan Dao, Master Yuan Ming, and Nun Shuqing, who had yet to recover from their injuries. He took a step forward, put his palms together, and chanted, Amitabha, Sakura, you've been plotting for a long time. You just want to find the sheepskin scroll and go deep into the forest to find the inheritance. Just as you said, my Dalan Temple is not a sect founded by the three ancestors of the immortal Tao. But since my Dalan Temple has the sheepskin scroll and has the right to enter the secret area, it's not impossible for your Tenryu sect to enter as well. Moreover, the three immortal Tao sects and my Dalan Temple may be different from your Tenryu sect, but we haven't had any fierce conflicts for tens of thousands of years. Today, although we're all injured, we may not necessarily lose to your Tenryu sect. This old monk is not talented, but I still want to make a deal with Sakura. When Sakura heard this, he was slightly stunned. With a strange smile on his face, he said, Master, please speak. Master Changsheng repeated the method of sharing the profits that he had told Alliance Master Zhang San just now. Without waiting for Sakura to answer, he turned around and asked Alliance Master Zhang San, Alliance Master Zhang San, what do you think of this old monk's suggestion? Alliance Master Zhang San was now alone, and his hatred was mostly added to by Yanqiu between the clouds and the water. Now that the strength of the four immortal Tao sects had been greatly reduced, if they fought with the Tenryu sect again, it would most likely be a lose-lose situation. He himself was very likely to be killed by the Tenryu sect. Who in this world was truly unafraid of death? At this moment, Alliance Master Zhang San also gave up the idea of using the sheepskin scroll to threaten Master Changsheng. He only nodded slightly. Great Master's understanding is beyond my expectations. Since that's the case, I won't say anything more. Take out the sheepskin scrolls and let me see if you really have the so-called sheepskin scrolls. I'll see if you really have the qualifications to enter the jungle. Grandmaster Changsheng frowned slightly and became cautious. He shook his head and said, Of course we have sheepskin scrolls. However, you don't seem to have one. What right do you have to look at our sheepskin scrolls? Ha! Indra laughed shrilly. According to the records of my Tenryu sect, the method of entering and leaving the forest has already been destroyed. Where did you get the sheepskin scroll? Are you sure that the sheepskin scroll can enter the secret plane? Then he looked at Situ Ping and said, If I didn't know that the method to enter and exit the secret area was long gone, how could I not pay attention when Situ Liang reported the mysterious actions of Situ Ping and the others to the Tenryu sect? What? The method to enter and exit the forest has already been destroyed? Grandmaster Changsheng was slightly stunned. He turned his head and looked at Nun Jing-yi, then looked at the Misty School. He used this sheepskin scroll to enter the secret plane personally a few years ago, when Wenhai's injuries had already recovered. He was already able to stand up. He cupped his hands and replied, Furthermore, I have already told Grandmaster Changsheng and the others about what I saw in the secret plane. There really is such a magical sheepskin scroll? Indra's tone was a bit hesitant. Then he asked, Can you let me take a look? Of course not. Indra, your Tenryu sect is trying to gain something without risking anything. It's better for you to follow behind us. There will be benefits for you guys anyways. Why are you in such a hurry? Nun Jing-yi was a bit dissatisfied. However, looking at both sides, she still said calmly, Hee, is that sheepskin scroll with you guys? Indra seemed to be worried. He asked casually, It might not be with me. However, if I don't say it, then no one will know where the sheepskin scroll is. Then, no one will be able to enter the secret plane. Alliance Master Zhang San said quickly. Really? Indra laughed. If that's the case, then that's great. Before he finished speaking, Indra waved the hand hidden in his sleeve. A faint black line that was almost invisible to the naked eye shot towards Alliance Master Zhang San. How dare you! A shout came from behind Grandmaster Chong Sheng. It was none other than Grandmaster Tiangang's voice. Along with his voice came the Wheel of Buddha's Radiance. The Dalan Temple's technique was indeed the nemesis of the Heavenly Dragon sect. The Wheel of Buddha's Dharma artifact was also worthy of being the Dalan Temple's famous Dharma artifact. Before the Wheel of Buddha's Dharma artifact could reach Alliance Master Zhang San, the Radiant Dharma artifact had already dispersed the black lines. Indra saw this and his expression changed slightly. He seemed extremely uncomfortable. Indra, what are you doing? Grandmaster Chong Sheng was furious. He also raised the Buddha beads in his hand. Hearing Grandmaster Chong Sheng's question, Indra looked up to the sky and laughed. Bai Yanxiu from the Shindao sect wants to enter the secret plane with you guys. Do you think my Tenryu sect is the same as her? To tell you the truth, the things in this secret plane, my Tenryu sect doesn't care about them at all. What I want to do today is to destroy this sheepskin scroll. None of your disciples from the 4 immortal Dao sects can enter the secret plane. Ah? Everyone was stunned. It turned out that the Tenryu sect was actually planning to destroy the sheepskin scroll. Haha, I understand. Grandmaster Chong Sheng laughed. Presumably, in this secret plane, the 3 ancestors of the immortal Dao sects must have left behind a method to restrain the Tenryu sect. Moreover, this method is extremely vicious. Maybe it can even wipe out the descendants of the Tenryu sect. So, Benefactor is hiding nearby and waiting for us to enter the secret plane to destroy the sheepskin scroll? Cut the crap. Indra waved his hand and shouted, Go! First, kill Zhang San from the Righteous Alliance. Then, capture the people from the Misty School alive. I want to see how your Dalan Temple and incense cult can enter the secret plane without these 2 sects. When Grandmaster Chong Sheng heard this, he looked at the disciples of the Tenryu sect who were pouncing over like tigers and wolves. He threw his Buddha beads and chanted, Amitba! Shanzai, Shanzai! Watch how I subdue demons! Old ball donkey! Upon seeing this, Sakura stretched out his hand that was hidden in his sleeve. His pale and slender hand was holding a palm-sized magic tool that was shaped like a horse head zither. However, the horse head zither that was commonly seen had strings and a lifelike horse head on top of the zither. However, in Sakura's hand, not only did it not have strings, the horse head was also a horse skull. That zither was even surrounded by a faint black fog. Zhu Xin. Grandmaster Chong Sheng narrowed his eyes and said, This Zhu Xin? I have admired it for a long time. Ha, old bald donkey, then let Zhu Xin have a taste of your heart. Indra laughed shrilly. The horse's head zither suddenly jumped into the air. The faint black fog spread slightly and an extremely soft sound shot towards Grandmaster Chong Sheng. Indra, your opponent is me. Seeing this, Grandmaster Tiangang threw the Wheel of Evolution. The Buddhist magic weapon lingering around the Buddha light flew towards the horse's head zither. I knew you would make a move. However, do you think I'm afraid of you? Indra muttered and made a gesture. 3 wisps of black fog separated from the horse's head zither and wrapped around the Wheel of Evolution. Before Indra made his move, he had already ordered his disciples to kill Alliance Master Zhang San and capture the disciples of the Misty School alive. The disciples of the Tenryu sect had already received their leader's order. They waved their weapons and shouted as they rushed towards Alliance Master Zhang San. At this time, Alliance Master Zhang San was surrounded by the disciples of the Incense sect. Peacock and the others had taken the Yuandan pill and their injuries had been suppressed. Nun Shuezhen had also slowly regained consciousness, but she was too injured to get up. Seeing the disciples of the Tenryu sect attacking, Peacock, Chin Chin, and Swift all drew their weapons and went up to meet them. On the right of Alliance Master Zhang San were the disciples of the Misty School. Similarly, when Wenhai, Lu Yueming, and Lu Qingyang's injuries had also been greatly alleviated. Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jian's bodies were not seriously injured. Seeing the disciples of the incense sect protecting Alliance Master Zhang San, although they were extremely unhappy, they had to draw their weapons and step forward to meet them. Although the disciples of the incense sect and the Misty School were injured earlier, they were still first-class experts, especially Peacock, Qin Chen, and Zhang Xiaohu. The weapons in Peacock and Qin Chen's hands were the magical weapons they obtained from the Yaoshan Immortal Abode. Their cultivation levels were still low and they could not control the flying swords. However, by infusing their vital energy, they were able to force the sword light out by more than 4 feet. It was a terrifying sight. The jade water sword in Zhang Xiaohu's hand was also about 1 foot long, and the sword light rushed out to meet the disciples of the Tenryu sect. With a wave of his sword, the disciple could not dodge in time and the sword light cut through the copper rod. There was no sound at all and the copper rod was cut in half. Zhang Xiaohu's swordsmanship changed again and the sword light pierced towards the disciple's throat from a strange angle. The disciple hurriedly dodged, but when he saw that he was more than 2 feet away from Zhang Xiaohua, the sword light would not be able to pierce him. He subconsciously let down his guard. However, at this time, the sword light that swept past the disciple's throat suddenly increased and became more than 3 feet long. It had slashed through the disciple's throat. The disciple didn't even have time to react before a flash of blood appeared. Blood continued to flow out from his throat and his body collapsed on the ground. He was dead, and the blood that flowed out slowly seeped into the ground. From where his blood seeped into, strands of black gas appeared from the ground. Zhang Xiaohu's figure did not change. The sword light of the broken water sword in his hand swallowed and spat out as he fought with the other disciples of the Tenryu sect. Li Jian and the others did the same. They waved their weapons and fought with Zhang Xiaohu and the disciples of the Tenryu sect. When the remaining heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect saw that Sakura had made his move, they also floated up and took out their magic weapons. They howled and flew towards Master Yuandao and the others. The one flying in front was Maharaga of the Tenryu sect. His hands were empty except for a small whip made of grayish-white bones in his right hand. When he got closer, Maharaga waved his right hand, and the small whip made of white bones transformed into a 2-foot-long whip made of white bones. The whip made an ear-piercing sound that was like the howling of a malicious spirit. It directly pierced one's mind. The whip stirred up a gust of wind and attacked Master Changxing from all directions. Please cast a monthly vote, please cast a recommendation vote, please collect, please tip, thank you. Chapter 12:18. When Master Longevity saw Maharaga's white bone whip coming, he took a deep breath and swung the Buddhist beads in his hand. The beads shimmering with Buddhist light spun and met the attack. The head of the white bone whip hit the edge of the Buddhist beads first. The Buddhist light expanded and dispersed the snake-like black gas coming out of the whip. The white bone whip seemed to be extremely afraid of the Buddhist light and quickly retracted. But after retracting about half a foot, it suddenly wrapped around the side of the Buddhist beads and inserted itself into the middle of the beads as if it had a mind of its own. Before the white bone whip could wrap around the Buddhist beads, there were a few crisp pops. The 108 tiny Buddhist beads suddenly scattered and spun separately. They formed a formation and collided with the white bone whip. At this time, the white bone whip had already been surrounded by the Buddhist beads. It couldn't dodge in time. With a few crackling sounds, the white bone whip was hit by several Buddhist beads, causing the white bone whip to flicker with a black brilliance. The black gas on the whip also lessened a little. Ah, old monk Longevity, you really have some skills. You are indeed worthy of being the abbot of the Dalan temple. Maharaga laughed wildly. After saying a few words, he formed a seal with his right hand and quickly muttered a few words. A few needle-like objects flew out of his hand and pierced into the white bone whip in midair. The moment the needles entered the white bone whip, it was as if a fuse had been ignited. The entire white bone whip suddenly grew 30% bigger. The white bone whip was like an explosion, expanding to about 10 feet and wrapping around the 108 Buddhist beads. When Grandmaster Changxing threw out his Buddha beads to fight Maharaga, Grandmaster Yuandao's demon subduing pestle also flew up. It picked up a heavenly king behind Sakura and slammed him down. However, before the demon's subduing pestle could land, a tall and thin heavenly king jumped up and shouted, "Demon subduing pestle? Hee hee, that's exactly what I want to meet." With that, the heavenly king flew into the air. He didn't take out any magic weapon, but he stretched out a fist. Although the heavenly king was thin and small, his fist was the size of an alms bowl and looked black. With a bang, the fist collided with the demon's subduing pestle. The heavenly king's body was smashed down 3 feet and almost fell to the ground. And the demon's subduing pestle was also bounced back. This, Master Yuan Dao, who had always believed in the power of the demon's subduing pestle, was dumbfounded. This was the demon's subduing pestle that had smashed Taoist Hao Yun into meat paste, but it was actually bounced back by the heavenly king of the Tenryu sect with his fist. For a moment, Master Yuan Dao actually forgot about the demon's subduing pestle in the air and let it in the air. Haha, as heavy as a mountain, the demon's subduing pestle is just SOSO. As the heavenly king laughed, his body flew up again. When he was 4 feet above the ground, his heroic spirit was unleashed. With a tisk, he tore off his shirt and cloak, revealing his upper body and head. This heavenly king was skinny and not as muscular as Kong Jian. The bronze color of his skin was slightly darker. On his skin, a lifelike dragon was entrenched on this heavenly king's body. The ferocious dragon head was tattooed on this heavenly king's head. Dragon King? Master Yuan Dao saw this and couldn't help but gasp and blurt out. The Tenryu sect's Dragon King had always been strong and had the strength of 1 dragon and 9 elephants. He had never heard of it but had never personally experienced it. Seeing what the Dragon King had done just now, was it not even more terrifying than the legends? Monk Yuan Dao? I have long heard of your reputation as a disciple of the guardian of the Dalan Temple. Today, I would like to see it for myself so that the world will know that the one with great strength is the one who is respected in the Tenryu sect. The Dragon King roared and flew up again. He clenched his fist at the dragon claw with the dragon tattoo. When he swung his fist, a faint black light flashed at the dragon tattoo. Then, a faint black gas floated out and hit the demon's subduing pestle that was still tumbling. Master Yuan Dao came to his senses and his eyes narrowed. He flew up and waved his hand. The demon's subduing pestle flew back to his hand. Master Yuan Dao waved his hand and the demon's subduing pestle made a sharp sound as it hit the Dragon King's fist. Master Yuan Dao didn't forget to mock the Dragon King. I will show you that the demon's subduing pestle can subdue a demon like you. Haha. The Dragon King laughed and the momentum of his fist didn't change. The two of them started fighting. The Dalan Temple only had Master Yuan Ming left. The Molu Pearl flew in the air and shone brightly. There were still 2 heavenly kings from the Tenryu sect attacking. When they got close, Master Yuan Ming turned to look at Nun Shuqing and Nun Jing. He pointed his finger and the Molu Pearl shone brightly and covered the 2 heavenly kings. Hee hee, old monk Yuan Ming, do you think that you can withstand the 2 of us? One of the heavenly kings flipped his hand and pulled out a white magic tool from his back. With a casual slash, a fishy wind followed that white, blade-like magic tool and attacked the Mao Pearl. Azura blade? You mean Azura? Master Yuan Ming laughed. I have long heard that Azura Heavenly King's Azura blade is the sharpest. I would like to see how your Azura blade will split my Molu Pearl. Ha, old monk Yuan Ming is indeed powerful. It really is this Heavenly King. Azura Heavenly King laughed loudly. The Azura blade suddenly shone with a dark red brilliance. A wave of ghostly wails and howls came from the Azura blade. Then, a blood-like scarlet mist came from the Azura blade and collided with the Molu Pearl. With a pu sound, the Molu Pearl was trapped in the bloody mist of the Azura blade. It was as if it was in a quagmire. Then, with a pung sound, the Azura blade struck the Molu Pearl. With a schwa sound, the Molu Pearl shone brightly and opened up a space of 3 feet around the bloody mist. However, this brilliance wasn't as bright as when Master Yuan Ming took out the Molu Pearl. Master Yuan Ming caught Azura. Nun Jing Yi and Nun Shuqing of the Tenryu sect looked at each other. One waved her peach blossom whip while the other waved her plain cloud white flag. A whip formed by peach blossoms and a lotus flower formed a brilliance and rushed towards the last heavenly king. The last heavenly king looked extremely dark and was abnormally skinny. However, he was also extremely short. He probably only reached Zhang Xiao's waist. However, the dark and skinny heavenly king held an extremely rare magic weapon. It was a pitch-black fork that was longer than the heavenly king's height. The front part of the fork was a ghost head with a ferocious expression. A tongue came out of the ghost head's mouth. The tongue split into 3 parts. They were the 3 prongs of the fork. Hee, 2 old ladies. The heavenly king chuckled, as if he didn't care about Nun Jing-yi and Nun Shu-qing at all. He waved his trident, and a pitch-black fog was emitted from it. The tip of the trident shone with a cold light. I was originally looking for Bai Yanqiu. Since you're here, I'll let you have some fun first. Great Yiksha. You're just the last of the 8 divine dragons of the Tenryu sect. What's there to be proud of? Nun Shu-qing saw the heavenly king's magic weapon and immediately knew his identity. She sneered. The masters of the Tenryu sect were all caught by the masters of the Dalan temple. A weakling like you can only be caught by the women of the Tenryu sect. It's only because your Tenryu sect lost people under Yao Mountain that there's no one else. Otherwise, I can deal with you alone. There's no need for the hierarch of the Tenryu sect to do it personally. The great Yaksha seemed to be extremely lecherous and easily angered. After hearing these words, he flew into a rage. His thin and small body suddenly leaped up and dodged the peach blossoms of the peach blossom whip. He pushed his trident forward 3 times and 9 streaks of black gas shot out from the tip of the trident towards the 2 nuns. As for the great Yaksha himself, he waved his trident around himself and countless streaks of black gas shot out, blocking in front of the white lotus on the plain cloud white flag. When the countless white lotuses came into contact with the black mist, it was as if they had met their nemesis. Puff puff puff. They all exploded and disappeared. At the same time, the black mist rippled and gradually became thinner. Nun Jing-yi smiled when she saw that she had successfully angered the great Yaksha. Her wrist moved slightly and the peach blossom whip suddenly changed its direction. It went from top to bottom and hit the black mist above the great Yaksha's head. Crack crack crack. The countless peach blossoms on the peach blossom whip cracked, and the black energy above the great Yaksha's head exploded. The great Yaksha was shocked and he said anxiously, "This old woman also has such a technique?" As she spoke, she raised her trident and thrust it straight at the peach blossom whip. Nun Jing-yi didn't shrink back. The peach blossom whip followed like a shadow and collided with the trident. With a muffled sound, the peach blossom whip was sent flying into the air by the trident. Nun Jing-yi's face turned slightly red at first, but then it quickly faded, revealing a ghastly pale face. The trident was also shaken away diagonally. The brilliance of the trident's tip was extremely dim. Shock appeared on the great Yaksha's pitch-black face again. Actually, in a battle of the immortal Tao, most people used immortal artifacts to mobilize the chi of heaven and earth to activate the immortal artifact's power. It was very rare to use the immortal artifact's body to fight. However, there wasn't enough chi of heaven and earth at the moment. If she only used the immortal artifact's power, the effect would be greatly reduced. It wouldn't be as powerful as when the immortal artifact's body collided. However, this kind of collision would hurt the immortal artifact's cultivation the most. Nun Jing-yi's attack just now had sent the great Yaksha's prongs flying and caused him to suffer a great loss, but she herself had also suffered a slight injury. The great Yaksha suffered a great loss and the light of his prongs dimmed. His pitch-black face was filled with shock and heartache. In his opinion, the peach blossom whip was a woman's immortal artifact and its body couldn't compare to the prongs of his prongs. However, when it collided, not only was his prongs damaged, but his cultivation was also shaken. The great Yaksha took a few deep breaths and suppressed his roiling chi and blood. His fighting spirit was even higher. He muttered and used the Tenryu sect's secret technique. The prongs of his prongs hummed and the ghost face at the prongs seemed to come alive. The prongs of his prongs moved slightly and the black mist that seeped out gradually solidified, Old woman, watch grandpa's power. The great yaksha roared and swept the prongs of his prongs. His body suddenly flashed and he stabbed at Nun Shuqing's body. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Chidian.com. Chapter 12-19. In this way, the heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect fought against the Dalan temple and the incense cult. The disciples of the Tenryu sect fought against the Misty School, the incense cult, and the leader of the alliance of the righteous sects, Zhang San. Only Bai Yanqiu, between the clouds and the water, was left in front of the dense forest of Five Claws Peak. He held the sky-shaking bow in his hand and looked blankly at the people in the field. Meng, who was standing not far away, was wearing a purple dress, and several disciples of the Tenryu sect who were armed and on guard around her. Bai Yanqiu. Logically speaking, he should have picked up the sky-shaking bow and directly dealt with the remaining disciples of the Tenryu sect. He could even capture Meng and use her as a hostage. The saintess of the Tenryu sect was a person who was slightly inferior to the Sakura. If Bai Yanqiu could capture her, would the Sakura not stop? However, there was only Bai Yanqiu in between the clouds and the water. Leader Zhang San had made it clear that as long as between the clouds and the water entered the secret plane, he would never take out the sheepskin scroll. The Dalan temple and the incense cult were the main culprits who killed the three immortals between the clouds and the water. At this time, they had revealed their true intentions and certainly would not have any chance with between the clouds and the water. As for this dense forest, Bai Yanqiu definitely could not enter. Since he could not enter the dense forest, how could Bai Yanqiu continue to work for the path of immortality? She stared blankly at the arena, looking for an opportunity to decide the outcome of the battle. She wanted to see if there was an opportunity for her to take advantage of. She was thinking about whether she should make a move or not, and which side she should help. She also had to consider whether she would be killed if she made a move. Perhaps, the best thing to do right now is to run away. Bai Yanqiu thought, looking left and right. However, when he saw Meng Hao off in the distance, he couldn't help but be surprised. Bai Yanqiu had never seen Meng between the clouds and the water. She had only heard from the disciples of the sect that she was a disciple of the inner sect, Zixia. The first time she saw Meng was at the martial arts assembly of the Huayu Palace of the Cult of Fragrance. At that time, Meng was very cute. She was standing beside Zhang Xiaohua, like a cute and lovable little bird. At that time, Bai Yanqiu already knew that Meng was the holy maiden of the Tenryu sect. She was terrified and didn't dare to stare at her for too long. Between the clouds and the water wasn't on par with the Tenryu sect. She was really afraid that Meng would vent her anger on her for being captured. Of course, although she didn't look closely, she still had a deep impression of the holy maiden of the Tenryu sect, the one and only holy maiden of Jianghu. Should I capture her? Bai Yanqiu's previous thought arose again. Perhaps I can gain some benefits from this? While Bai Yanqiu was lost in thought, Meng seemed to have sensed something. She turned her gaze away from the battle in the field and met Bai Yanqiu's gaze. Ah! Bai Yanqiu was shocked. She felt that Meng's eyes were filled with endless bewitchment and mockery. It made her feel as if her divine sense was being sucked in. Bai Yanqiu stumbled in her panic. It took her a lot of effort to shift her gaze away. She didn't dare to look in Meng's direction again. She thought to herself, the Tenryu sect's cultivation method is so domineering. This Meng has only been back for a few days. How could she have improved her cultivation by so much? Does this Tenryu sect's saintess specialize in the cultivation method of intimidating one's mind? Meng Hao smiled when she saw that Bai Yanqiu had tactfully avoided meeting her. It was as if Bai Yanqiu was just a clownfish that couldn't make a big wave no matter how hard he tried. She then looked at the sky. There was no frown. She then looked at the people fighting in the field. Although there were many ordinary disciples in the Tenryu sect, their martial arts were inferior to that of Zhang Xiaohu and the rest. Peacock and the rest seemed to be handling the situation with ease. However, because they were injured by the sky shaking drum, they didn't have time to heal their injuries. Once they started fighting, it was obvious that they weren't in good condition. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, there weren't many casualties. Looking at Master Tiangang, Sakura and the rest, it was different from the fight between the immortal Dao seniors at the foot of Yao Mountain. At the right time, the various sects couldn't choose which sect would be the first to enter Immortal's abode. According to the rules of Jianghu, the one with the biggest fist would be the first to enter Immortal's abode. Although it was said that they wouldn't show mercy, the leaders of the various sects didn't make a move. Only the seniors of the various sects used their immortal Dao skills to fight for the sake of the future agreement and the reputation of the various sections. If it wasn't for the Tenryu sect's sneak attack, the Dalan Temple lost Master Yuanwu, the Incense sect lost Abbess Shu Jie, causing the Incense sect and the Dalan Temple to have a grudge. Abbess Shu Qing changed sides and challenged the Dalan Temple together with Between the Clouds and the Water. Later on, the nirvana of the phoenix attracted the vital energy of heaven and earth, triggering the bloodthirsty emotions of the crowd. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been bloodshed at the foot of Yao Mountain. Today, the heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect finally found such a good opportunity to gather everyone from the immortal Dao here. Moreover, the immortal Dao had internal strife, causing everyone to be injured. The Tenryu sect had the upper hand in terms of strength. The Tenryu sect had the intention to finish this battle in one fell swoop, so they didn't show any mercy at all. The heart executioner in Sakura's hand was already spewing out black gas from the 7 apertures of the skull. The black gas was like a spirit snake, winding around the mortal wheel and slowly entangling it. The Dalan Temple's technique was the nemesis of the Tenryu sect's technique, and the faint Buddha's light was also the nemesis of the black gas. Early on, when Master Tiangang and Sakura were fighting, the black gas that Sakura released was purified by the faint Buddha's light and disappeared between heaven and earth without a trace. However, after fighting for a while, the Buddha's light was only a little bit. Master Tiangang was injured twice, and the magic power in his body was already somewhat exhausted. Sakura was also strange. Previously, he was injured by Master Tiangang, and that injury was caused by both of his hands passing through his body. At this moment, it seemed that Sakura was using some kind of secret technique of the Tenryu sect, so it was impossible to see the injury from a month ago. The black gas in the heart executioner became more and more concentrated, and it almost enveloped the entire mortal wheel. Moreover, the black gas was like silk that entangled the mortal wheel tightly. Master Tiangang felt as if the mortal will had fallen into a quagmire. His divine sense was already somewhat unable to move the mortal wheel flexibly. And the most terrible thing was that the reason why the heart executioner was called heart executioner was because this horse-head zither could make a mournful sound like a ghost's cry, and it was like a sharp sword that pierced into the opponent's heart. Master Tiangang might not have been able to care about this kind of sound attack if it was on a normal day. However, just an hour ago, the ancient divine weapons, the sky-shaking drum and the sky-breaking hammer, had appeared here. Under the desperate urging of Master Hao Yun, these killing weapons had already injured Master Tiangong's heart meridian. If he could meditate for a few years, Master Tiangong's heart meridian might be able to recover, and he wouldn't be afraid of the heart executioner then. However, when it rains, it pours. Master Tiangang had just killed Master Hao Yun when Sakura came and used the heart executioner to attack Master Tiangong's heart meridian. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, Master Tiangang already felt a dull pain in his heart meridian, which had already affected the use of his magic power. If we fight for another 2 hours, I'm afraid I'll really fall in the hands of Sakura. Master Tiangang thought in his heart, but then he suddenly realized, the Tenryu sect may not only want to destroy the sheepskin scroll. They only need to destroy the operation of the 4 sects to enter the secret land, and we can only wait until next year to enter the secret land again. And we're all injured, so they have enough time to deal with us and destroy the sheepskin scroll. They have a whole year's time. Maybe, in the secret land, there really is a secret left by the immortal Dao's 3 ancestors to deal with the Tenryu sect? Master Tiangang suddenly realized. Tisk. Thinking of this, Master Tiangang felt an incomparable pain in his heart meridian. It was so painful that Master Tiangang almost cried out. He took the time to look at the sky. Although it was still covered with dense clouds and snowflakes, the sky was already bright. Master Tiangang felt that there was not much time left until the first ray of sunlight rose. But the whole sky is covered by clouds. How can the sunlight pass through? Master Tiangang thought of this question for no reason. Poof! He spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The blood essence was injected into the wheel of divination with Master Tiangong's incantation. Master Tiangong's eyes suddenly lit up. The wheel of divination was the same as Master Tiangong's eyes. Suddenly, a buzzing sound came from the wheel of divination. While the surrounding rings were rotating rapidly, the cross in the middle suddenly broke away from the ring and shot towards Sakura like lightning. Sakura was startled. He flicked his hand and a wisp of black silk was formed. It guided the black gas that came out of the heart executioner and formed a net in front of the cross-shaped lightning. When the lightning touched the black gas net, it made a sizzling sound. The black gas was like snow that was poured with hot water, and it instantly melted. Sakura was surprised. He pointed his finger and more black gas wrapped around the lightning. However, the lightning didn't stop there. It kept forming a net of black gas, and it was about to shoot in front of Sakura. Puff! Sakura frowned. He had no choice but to open his mouth and spit out a mouthful of black gas. The black gas gradually turned into the shape of a short sword in the air, and it quickly blocked in front of the lightning. The lightning seemed to have exhausted its strength. It was blocked by the black gas and stopped. Hee, old bald donkey, what else? Before Sakura could sneer, the lightning suddenly split into two. One of the two halves was even faster, and when Sakura wasn't paying attention, it shot toward the skull of the heart executioner. With a pop sound, the skull was actually pierced through, turning into a few white pieces that floated in the air. The black gas within the skull suddenly burst out, enveloping the surrounding area. Old bald donkey! Sakura was furious. Just as he was about to pick up the pieces floating beside the zither, a kind of vigilance suddenly rose from the bottom of his heart. He didn't think and didn't care about the pieces. He immediately soared up and was about to float away. However, at this moment, at the place where Sakura Yaoshan was ambushed by Master Tiangang, the same pair of white jade-like palms appeared in the same posture. It was Master Tiangang who used the Wheel of Evolution to make the final attack, attracting Sakura's attention. As for himself, he didn't care about the corrosion of the heart executioner's black gas. He forcefully channeled his magic power and went deep into the black gas. Using the same method, he heavily injured Sakura again. Please cast a monthly vote, please cast a recommendation vote, please collect, please tip. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to cast a recommendation vote or monthly vote. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.